Frank, this episode of Phone Booth Fighting is brought to you, as always, by the fine folks at Low T Nation. LowTNation.com. If you're a guy, check. If you're getting a little older, definitely check. Getting a little slower, feeling a little more sluggish, don't quite have the get up and go that you used to. I feel like I'm writing my own autobiography here. Then LowTNation.com is the website for you. It's up to you to tell me why.
Well, you know what? If the body's not operating at its full capacity, no matter what you do effort-wise, I think a lot of us at home can understand what that feels like. You can try to eat the right way, you can exercise all you want, but if through age and through injuries, you're just not on all cylinders, then you're not going to get the results that your effort is meriting. So, you give the guys there, Brandon there at Low T Nation, a phone call. They'll do a consultation for free on the phone. At that point, if they, think that you may be a candidate, super easy. They give you directions to a LabCorp. There's one in every state, almost one in every city. Go do your blood work. Once they have that, they have their physicians look it over, and you're receiving a monthly prescription of whatever medication you need to make sure that you're hitting it on all levels so that you can feel good and get the most out of life.
Every week we are hearing from more and more Phone Booth Fighting listeners who are getting on board with the Low T way. They all got there the same way. They heard us talk about it here on Phone Booth Fighting. They went to lowtnation.com, called the toll-free number, did the free telephone consultation, did the preliminary lab work, and then that was it. And then Low T Nation does the heavy lifting from there, literally sending your supply to your doorstep on a regular basis. So do us a favor, hit them up at lowtnation.com, give them a call, just see if you're a candidate for treatment. If not, you won't have wasted more than a few minutes worth of a phone call, and you get to talk to a good Phone Booth Fighting listener just like yourself. Dr. Weeks and Brandon over there are big supporters of ours, and they like the show just like you guys do. So show them some love, let them know that you appreciate them for supporting the show, and turn your life around while you're at it as well by logging on to lowtnation.com. All right, Frank, UFC 223 is nigh upon us. It's this weekend, and it has suffered a major blow, yet it has been that major blow has given way to a very compelling short-notice consolation fight, and it's, to me, such a compelling fight. I don't know that it's really fair to call it a consolation. So we're going to be talking about that, breaking down the fight card here in just a little bit, and we got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. We do, however, first want to welcome on a brand new sponsor, and I'm excited about this one, Frank, because this hits right in my wheelhouse. Ellefson Coffee.
It's like the only bad habit you have.
It is. It is
really. I couldn't think of another one.
No, the only, if you want to call it a vice, the only thing I indulge in is coffee.
From coffee.
Yep, I do enjoy. And you know what? Hey, you say bad habit. I mean, there's medical evidence now to suggest that there's health benefits to drinking
prevent
coffee.
Alzheimer's, burns free fatty acids in the bloodstream. No, there's, it helps out with the liver.
Yep.
No, there's obviously, if you have heart issues, jacking up on caffeine is not the greatest thing in the world. But,
right.
But no, there's a lot of stuff in the positive. I think I was talking to Tyler, where he's also one of the football coaches for the kids.
Yep.
So we're sitting there, we're just talking because Tyler, played pro football, and he and I kind of have the same brains and same issues. And
I was going to say, Tyler is a guy who may as well coach football, because if he doesn't, everybody's going to assume he's a football coach anyway.
He's a pretty high-octane guy. He's Metro. He works. He just got a promotion too, so a police officer now.
Oh yeah.
So it's always funny.
Yeah.
We were just talking about, he's cleaned up so many things as far as like health-wise, and just really, he's losing weight, just really being, conscious about stuff. I'm like, it was something else. Like he pulled out a Red Bull, and I'm like, I can't drink that. The wife's over there. Mm-hmm. He goes, oh, she won't let you drink Red Bull? I'm like, no, she'll let me have coffee, but I can't drink those because I like Monsters, and she just read all this shit how it's bad for you.
Yeah.
So he's like looking at me, so, we're like laughing at each other. I'm all, yeah, she hangs out with Rich too much. He goes, does that dude do anything wrong? I'm all, I think he drinks coffee.
Yeah.
That's about the worst thing he does. So we actually brought you up about 3 hours ago.
I drink Ellefson coffee is what I drink because now, much to my delight, our lives have an official coffee sponsor. Now, this gets better because Dave Ellefson, the man for which Ellefson coffee,
good coffee.
It is excellent.
All right, good.
Dave Ellefson, the man for which Ellefson coffee is named, is a friend of mine. He's a good dude. You've heard him here on the show. That was a week when Frank was over in Russia, so he wasn't in studio with us. But if you're a metalhead like me, then you know David Ellefson as the founding bass player of Megadeth. And so he is, when you get to be a future...
He's one of the more well-known,
without a doubt.
Top three in anybody's argument of bass guitarists.
Certainly in the metal genre.
Right.
Yeah. I think maybe we've talked about this before, but there's
because it messes up your fingers, right? Too isn't it hard to play the bass?
The strings are a lot thicker.
Yeah, I heard those guys bleed and stuff. That thick calluses.
Yeah. You have the thicker calluses than say
metal.
The guitar player, right? And of course, Megadeth is one of the big four metal bands. Do you remember your big four, Frank? I think we talked about this.
No, I don't. But let me see if I can get this.
Yep.
Okay, so. Obviously Megadeth, right?
Yep, Megadeth's one of them.
I gotta say Metallica has to be one.
That's number two.
Okay, hold on. Black Sabbath?
No, because they predate. They're
too
older.
old,
So
too
what
old?
we're going to
Okay.
think 80s.
Okay.
Yep. Thrash metal.
Whitesnake?
No, that's going to be more hair metal. It's going to be more glam, kind of poppy sounding.
They do a lot of the church Jesus things. They always
One of them has a lot of let me give you a hint. I'm a big fan. You see me wear their shirt sometimes. Of the big four, one that you're not thinking of is some of the heaviest devil imagery and pentagrams and that sort of thing.
Go ahead.
Slayer.
No, I wasn't thinking that one.
Okay, all right. And then your fourth one, you may not get this one, named for a cow disease, mad cow disease. Do you know this one? Anthrax.
Anthrax. No, didn't know that
So you got your Metallica, your Megadeth, your Slayer, your Anthrax. That is the Mount Rushmore of thrash metal.
Who is the other band I was trying to think of right now that starts with a P or something?
Pantera.
Pantera.
Yeah, and Pantera is...
That's what I was going for. Would I have been close? Top 10?
Yes, and the only thing with Pantera is they're
going to be Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses is going to be more... they're going to be more hard rock. This is going to be more... And by the way, if you're listening...
Really? So Guns N' Roses is not considered heavy metal?
No, I wouldn't say heavy metal. I would say hard rock.
Hard rock.
So if don't worry, we're going to get to the no, this is good. We're doing this because I didn't realize how much work
you're aware of how retarded I am when it comes to music, right?
I'm not that far off. So
okay, good. Because I know about fighting, and I have some pop trivia stuff from science because I got I like that stuff. But other than that, yeah,
I'll get everybody.
I like comic books.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
Well, you know what?
Music I suck at.
A lot of metal guys like comic books. Scott Ian of Anthrax is a huge comic book collector. But we're gonna finish our Ellefson Coffee Company spot here in just a second. But this is important. This is important. This is one of these deals.
Big brother in me, right?
Absolutely.
Guide me the right direction here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here's kind of what you're looking at. In you mentioned Black Sabbath, and that's important because Black Sabbath is probably the most important metal band of all time and probably the first ever metal band because they came out in the late 60s, very early 70s.
Okay.
So they really started what would be considered the modern metal movement, right? Do you remember the original singer of Black Sabbath who went on to solo fame?
I thought it was Ozzy.
It is,
okay.
yes. Ozzy Osbourne, and then after that they had Ronnie James Dio. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dio.
I know Ozzy Osbourne.
Right, okay.
I think
yeah.
Jesus, you'd have to be fucking born under a rock not to know Ozzy Osbourne.
So,
Sharon!
Yes. So Black Sabbath in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So then what you had is through the 70s, you had a lot of prominent rock bands like Aerosmith, huge in the 70s.
Yeah, okay.
And I would say that Guns N' Roses would be closer to the mold of Aerosmith as far as influence,
right,
as opposed to, say, Megadeth, who is going to be more influenced by Black Sabbath.
Okay, I'm starting to understand the difference. I don't think I've ever thought about it before. I kind of just grouped rock and roll and heavy metal all together, but heavy metal is much more
dark, dense, dissonant.
Right.
Yes.
Like
yes.
Danzig. Is that more heavy metal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm getting it.
Right.
Where they don't have like love ballads.
Right.
Right. We're like Sweet November Rain. Is that
yes? Well, what you did is you took two Guns N' Roses ballads and you merged them together. That was impressive. You took Sweet Child of Mine and November Rain, and you created Sweet November Rain.
There you go.
That's okay.
But at least you know I'm there, right?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. That's okay. It's okay.
My brain's trying to click along.
Yeah, no, you're getting it. Okay, so basically through the 70s.
So Megadeth doesn't have a love ballad? Power ballads?
No, they really don't.
Of the bad boys.
No, yeah.
What was that one thing?
Every bad boy has a soft side.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, and for the most part they do.
It was like Casey Kasem and something.
Yeah, when they would sell those compilations.
Yeah.
Okay, so
those things always sounded awesome.
Yeah. So what? By the way, if you're watching on our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel, Mikey has pulled up the EllisonCoffeeCo.com website. Thank you. All right. So what you had going through the 70s, you had Black Sabbath, who was going to bring in the thrash metal era in the 80s, and then you had a band like Aerosmith that's going to bring in the hard rock bands like Guns N' Roses. Right. Okay. So now we get to the 80s, and in the 80s. Right about the mid-'80s, you had Guns N' Roses, which burst on the scene, a huge presence. Motley Crue, okay, right about that same time. Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses are going to be more in the same arena together. But while you had that going on, which was like a lot of hairspray and makeup and spandex and all that kind of stuff, you also had the harder rock sound, which is going to be Metallica.
So the Megadeth guys don't really wear makeup.
Right, exactly.
They have the long hair, but they're brutal.
Yeah.
Whereas the rock guys are a little bit more effeminate.
Yeah. In fact, what happened was when Metallica, and this is interesting, talking about lineage, this is like getting all your Gracies straight. So Metallica was originally made up of singer James Hetfield, drummer Lars Ulrich, two guys still in the band today, bass player Cliff Burton, who tragically died in the 80s, but their other guitar player, not Kirk Hammett, not the guy that's in there now, no.
Dave Mustaine.
Dave Mustaine, that's right, the front man of Megadeth. So when he was kicked out of Megadeth at the very early part of their career, he formed, when he was booted out of Metallica, he formed Megadeth with our new sponsor, Dave Ellefson. Dave and Dave got together and created Megadeth. And then along those same lines, you had Slayer coming up and Anthrax. All three of those four were West Coast California bands. Megadeth and Metallica originally from the Bay Area. Although by the time that Ellefson met Mustaine, they met in Southern California. And then over on the East Coast, you had Anthrax. They kind of represented the East Coast. Okay, so there's your big four.
Edit this part out.
No, I think it's
no. What I'm about to say. So mark the time.
Right. Yes.
Because when I first seen Ellefson, it just shows you what I watched more as a kid between music and pornography.
Yeah.
I thought it was that guy Stone.
Evan Stone?
Yeah. I'm glad you knew this first name. So maybe you have two bad habits.
I have a couple of bad. Here's this, and you.
Do you know Evan Stone?
You will.
You're
not
friends with Evan Stone, aren't you?
I'm friends with Dave Ellefson, and I know Evan Stone. So there you go. Yeah.
Of course you do.
All right. Back to Dave Ellefson, who's a good God-fearing
But you can
Christian.
see why I thought that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I can. Yeah. I can see that a little bit. Absolutely. Okay, so there's your crash course in thrash metal, and that gets us.
Especially that picture there.
Yeah, that gets us to Megadeth. All right, so Dave Ellefson doing what any good hard rocker does. When
Are you kidding about the Christian part?
No, he and Mustaine both are religious guys.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, they both live in Phoenix, where they hang out with another guy who's a God guy now, Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper's a God guy?
Mm-hmm. And
wasn't he like a science guy? Or maybe I'm just... I think I'm just mixing things up I've seen on TV.
What they all had in common was they came from addiction. So they all, I mean, Alice Cooper.
Yeah,
was
when you
like
do the 12-step program, isn't finding God one of the steps or something?
Yeah, in fact.
A power higher or outside of yourself?
Yeah. In fact, Ellefson, although he's like really involved in his church and stuff, he doesn't, he doesn't like wear it around his neck or anything.
Which is, I think, what you're supposed to do in your Christian.
It's actually, if you read his autobiography, this is a unplanned plug for Dave's autobiography, it was really good. And that's coming from this atheist. Like, it was inspiring just in terms of just being a good person. You know what I mean? Like, if more Christians...
He's a person that religion was good for.
Yeah,
He's
for sure.
Good representation.
And all it does is just make you focused on being nice to other people, which it turns out had something to do with the origin of Christianity, as I've heard. That the original idea was...
I think, did you and I have that discussion one time? I was like, we were talking, it was, and I know that I'm picking out the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
The West Barbaro.
Oh, yeah, the Westboro Baptist Church people.
Obviously, they are not in any form a proper representation of Christianity. They're obviously the bottom of the fucking barrel. You know what I mean? They're the assholes of the assholes. But I wish they could actually meet Jesus. You know, if Jesus and be like, hey, assholes, do you know that the guy that I've read about, Matthew and all that stuff, if that guy existed, he'd be hanging out with the dudes that you're persecuting. You know what I mean? Like he hung out with thieves and prostitutes and people, the diseased and the disenfranchised.
Seemed to spend an awful lot of time talking about doing for the least among us.
Yeah,
that seemed to be a primary
it was like
focus.
Finishing, last on earth to be first in heaven type thing. He wasn't really hanging out with the rich crowd. You know what I mean? Like, in fact, the guy like fucking owned a pair of sandals and a robe.
Spent little to no time talking about how you needed to get as many things as you could and then keep them. Very little talk about that.
That's why it always baffles me when people are like, so that's why it's always such a fresh thing when I get to meet somebody. Like I like talking to people that are of faith, that are good representations of that thought. Because I go, all right, cool, that's awesome. Because in my travels, I see so much dark shit in the name of religion, which pisses me off. But then you see good stuff, which is like, all right, cool, fuck, I just balance this shit out, man.
Yeah, to me, I always say that I will put the way I treat other people and the way I live my life up against anybody else's. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else. I'm just saying I feel comfortable standing on my own record is what I'm saying. Oh,
absolutely.
Right? So to me...
I'd bet on you too. Not on my behavior, but on your behavior.
No.
If right now we all died and I had to defend a soul and I got you, fuck, man.
Thanks, man. Well, no, here's the thing. Here's the thing. It's like if you're telling me that religion keeps you focused on being the best person you can be and treating other people really well, I'm all for it. It's when you start getting into, well, that person's not in the right club. See, so they have to be shunned. We're about membership and strength in numbers. And by the way, we got to recruit more people because the other faith down the road is their numbers are up, ours are down. Then it's just a game. And the other thing too is I always say this. I always say, look, I feel comfortable if I were to get to some like Judgment Day or something like that, and turns out, because hey, you and I both have talked about how we hope we're wrong, right? Like we really will hope that things keep going.
That's an argument I don't mind I lose.
No, me neither. But I will say this: if we get to this place where there's some sort of actual judgment or something, I feel completely comfortable going, hey, check the record. I feel I'm good. I did the best I could to treat people the best I could, and that was my best effort while I was here on Earth. And if somebody were to look at me and go, great, yeah, sure, but you know what? You never joined the right club. Then I wouldn't want to be part of that anyway.
Yeah,
then it's
just kind of a stupid.
Well, then it's just a roll of the dice, right? But if
I love when people think that. I'm like, so you can be an asshole, but
you
just happen to go ahead and say the right words and believe in the right guy, but you can continue to be a dick. Well, you try not to be a dick, but bottom line, you're saying you could be an asshole and you're going to get farther. Well, yeah. I'm like, over the guy that tries to live a good life. Yeah. Think about that for a second. Do you really think it would be that easy? If there is a higher power and a thought process out there, do you think there's a fucking get out of jail free card? Well, if you just have faith, you can be a scumbag and you can come join the club. But if you're a good guy and you work hard day in and day out to be the best person you can, I'm not really into that.
Yeah.
Really? Then okay.
Yeah. So that's how I've always approached it, and I feel like that's all you can do. You know, you live the best life you can. You treat people as best as you can, and you do for the least among. Listen, just because I may have my scientific doubts about the literal nature of certain things in the Bible doesn't mean that I don't think there are some good ideas in there as far as treating people the way you would want to be treated, things like that, doing for the least among you. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with taking those parts. And, you know, and it was interesting meeting Dave, too, because I knew that about him before I met him. You know, I had interviewed Dave Mustaine before. I knew that about him. I knew it about Ellefson. I knew it about Alice Cooper. That's a pretty famous example because Alice, you know who Alice was really good friends with until he passed away recently was Glenn Campbell. And you wouldn't think those two would have anything in common, the country music legend, because Glenn was a big Christian guy too. But Alice and Glenn Campbell lived near each other, and they played golf together like every day. But Alice is a guy who had such addiction troubles that he had to, you know, when he got out of that, he had religion that kind of kept him straight, and he had golf as an addiction to replace, you know, the drinking and all the rest of that. Anyway, but if you listen to Ellefson's, or you read Ellefson's book, I thought it was very, it was very inspiring because it wasn't, it spoke to me as an atheist, if that makes sense.
No, I'm actually super interested.
Yeah, I'll turn you on to it. It was very good. Anyway, so he's got this coffee company.
Okay, back around to the coffee.
And so Dave and I, you know, when you were
what made him get into coffee?
Well, he's like me in the sense that he doesn't drink, he doesn't do any drugs. The only thing he does is he enjoys coffee, but he really enjoys coffee. I mean, he was, you know, I told him the line I always used about coffee when we were hanging out here in Vegas. I said, you know, to me, coffee's like a boob job. You get what you pay for. You know, you can save you some money on a boob job, but if you cut those corners, it's going to show. And coffee's kind of the same way. You know, you can get you some cheap swill coffee, but you're going to taste it. And so Dave, being a coffee connoisseur, started Ellefson Coffee. Now, a little bit about that is they roast this stuff. They hand pack each bag. It's roasted bag and shipped to order, always fresh. Each one comes in whole bean or ground, so you can specify there. Here's a quote from Dave himself. My love for coffee has accompanied me around the world for my entire musical career. Just like the spirit of a culture or the melody of a song, the enjoyment of coffee brings people together and creates harmony among us. The beans in this bag are traceable to their global origin and exemplify the spirit and culture of the people who grew them. It is my aim to bring this roast to your tables and awaken your taste buds, fire up your rock and roll spirits, and continue the global fellowship of music, art, and coffee. May you roast in peace, which is a play on a Megadeth album title called Rust in Peace, which is one of their most famous ones. So Dave hooked us up. We've got Ellefson Coffee mugs. We've got an assortment of roasts now to enjoy on the show. And here's the best part of it for Phone Booth Fighting listeners. If you go to ellefsoncoffeeco.com, that's ELLEFSON, ellefsoncoffeeco.com. Use the promo code PhoneBooth. You're going to save 10% off of your order, whatever you get. And the interesting thing, Frank, is it's got a whole rock and roll lifestyle vibe to it. So what we're drinking tonight is the Urban Legend blend here. They've also got Kenya Thrash, which I was warned about, by the way. Kenya Thrash is not for the faint of heart. It says it's supercharged right on the bag, so that's if you're planning to be up all night.
Not for the literally fainted heart?
Literally, Mikey, yes. And the other interesting thing is they also have signature blends of other bands. So do you know Queensryche? Have you ever heard of Queensryche? Okay, so this is the Queensryche signature blend right here, Whip Specific blend. That's named for Michael Wilton of Queensryche. Skid Row has their own blend called Slave to the Grind. And then the band Autograph, there it is. They've got their own blend as well. And Dave also sent these. Now, I can't have these because they're vegan. They've got some milk chocolate in them. But these are Atomic Rocks. And what they are is they're coffee edibles, Ellefson Coffee Company chocolate-covered coffee beans. And I was told you only need a few of these to feel them. So I'll give those to you, and maybe let Mikey try a few of those. Yeah. So anyway, so they are a new sponsor. We're happy to have them. You'll see us drinking Ellefson coffee here on the show and serving it to our guests. We even gave us a couple of nice Ellefson Coffee Company mugs here. And, again, the website.
Who got the coffee machine?
That's me. I brought that for us. Yeah, so we're all hooked up. EllefsonCoffeeCo.com is the website. And, again, a reminder that promo code phone booth to save 10% off of your orders. All right. Well, that right there. So you just took you a big handful, didn't you? Yep. I told you to be careful. Told you to just take a few. Just like it was a bottle of aspirin. It says to take 2, and Frank just gets a. You want to try those, Mike?
Yeah.
Go big or go home.
That's right. There you go. All right. All right. Anyway, so nice to have those guys on board. That was a very lengthy. I planned just to give them a little read at the top of the show, but hey, that's how we do it on Phone Booth. You know, I mean, it's like
inaugural.
We can get into a lengthy conversation about some element of anything really, but in that case, a sponsor sparked a theological conversation. Mate, you know what? One of these days when we have Dave here in studio. Maybe we can talk some metal, and maybe we'll get into a little theology along the way if he's willing. Yeah. He'll probably like the conversation. All right, let's talk UFC. UFC 223, Frank. Speaking of God, you know, Khabib Nurmagomedov has long said that God was not on board with the Tony Ferguson fight. Remember that? He said that God had called it off a couple of times prior. Apparently, I don't know what God doesn't see in this fight that all the rest of us do, because to me this was as compelling of a fight as you could make, Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov. But it's off again. It has now been canceled 4 times in 4 years. Ferguson and Khabib were supposed to main event Saturday night in Brooklyn for the lightweight title. I saw conflicting reports about this, but it sounded like this was going to be for the actual lightweight title, that maybe they were going to strip Conor McGregor of his title before the fight. And, of course, Ferguson would enter that fight as interim lightweight champion after defeating Kevin Lee. Ferguson, I guess late last week, suffered a freak injury. Did you hear the particulars of this story?
I've heard a couple different versions. The one that I heard, and you can tell me if that's the one you've heard too, is that he was on set at the Fox Studios, was walking, saw somebody and went to go change directions very quickly, and somehow stepped on the power cords the wrong way and
tripped on it. Yeah, I mean, you know, if you've ever been in a TV studio, they've got those big, giant, thick cables, you know, on the floor, and that sounded like what he tripped over, and yeah, ripped up his knee, like you said. So,
but it seemed like he wasn't too much. I mean, obviously it bothered him, but when he went and got the MRI done by the doctor's the one that pulled it, not necessarily him. Or
well, what I heard was he tried to train through it, went and saw I think he said he's seen 2 doctors. One of them thinks he needs surgery. One doctor said maybe he won't, but both of them agreed that he was not going to be able to fight. That it just he tried for a couple of days. He took a day off, and then he tried to train, and he said he could just still, you know, feel something was wrong, and then it started getting worse, so that by the time Sunday rolled around, he actually had to make the call to cancel the fight. Now, Dana said that he, I guess, kind of corroborated the story about the being in the TV studio, but Dana also pointed out the fact that it might have had something to do with the fact he was wearing sunglasses indoors, which, you know, if there's any silver lining in this, I hope it does raise awareness of the peril of wearing sunglasses indoors? Because I have often, in fact, I've thought about it specifically with Tony Ferguson, because I've seen him at media day events before, and he not only wears sunglasses, he wears really dark sunglasses. I'll bet those glasses are darker than the tint on his car, and I'll bet the tint on his car is pretty dark. So that would not surprise me. But anyway, that's apparently what happened. Now, in steps Max Holloway. So that's a whole new twist here. The reigning UFC featherweight champion, a guy who's on a 12-fight win streak, steps in. First of all, initial thoughts, Frank, on the fight we were all hoping for getting canceled, and then just as quickly as that happens, this new version of a fight getting made with Max Holloway, pound for pound, one of the best out there.
As far as me being involved in MMA for almost 20 years now, this is the first time I've ever heard of a fight that you just could not make. When I was, was it Monday? I was in the gym, and when I walked in the morning, James and Adrian were talking about it. They're like, tell me. I'm like, bullshit. That was the first words out of my mouth. I'm like, no, come on, really? They're like, yeah, man, he's out. I'm like, no way, really? And so, probably the first thought that most people had was just like, no, come on. There's no way that once again, this fight's going to get pulled. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen. As far as Max stepping in, I think at first, your first notion is like, well, shit, man, he's moving up a weight class against a really tough guy in Khabib, who's, a world beater. But you know what? There's factors that make it interesting. I think that Max has a legitimate chance still to win the fight because, Max is used to dealing with a lot of adversity. He's a good long puncher, and Khabib doesn't throw long punches, So I think on the outside he actually has a little bit of a striking advantage. He can land some shots with his, not only just his speed, but he has reach on Khabib. He throws long, straight, shots down the middle, and he can withstand a beating. And Khabib, I still don't think very well. He doesn't make 55 very easily. So he's going to have to struggle to make 55. He's never made 55. He's only made 56. So, I know it's a pound, but you're talking, a pound when you're cutting down like that. Those guys suffer. Now with me being with the ACB and I sit backstage and watch guys cutting weight and, over there, it's 500 grams. I can see guys suffering, 200 grams he's off. I'm like, wow, man, you see the difference between, a half a pound on how much it can just make or break a guy. So I'm thinking that if Khabib isn't able to get him out of there in 2 or 3 rounds, I'm really going to be really interested to see what he's going to do. A hard weight cut saps everybody's energy. I don't care who you are. That's just one of the drawbacks. Yes, you're going to be bigger and stronger if you cut a lot of weight and then you load back up, but everybody, it seems, to take something out of your endurance. There's no endurance athlete who's cutting massive amounts of weight before an event because it takes glycogen out of the liver. There's the hydration process. There's so many things that are counterintuitive and counterproductive towards being a long distance athlete. So I'm not convinced that Khabib can suffer down to 55 and still be a 5-round ferocious fighter. Now, what I've seen him do in 3 rounds might be enough to go ahead and finish Max, but Max is a tough guy, man. He's got a great takedown defense. Like I said, the long punches, I think that, he's going to be a pain for Khabib to get down, and, has good submissions. He can wrap the neck with a darce. He has a good guillotine, so if Khabib, makes a mistake shooting, he might suffer for it. So it might make him stand in front of him. So I'm not as convinced as everybody else is probably this is such a one-sided fight. I actually think that Max Holloway has a good opportunity right now to be a 2-division champion.
Very interesting. You bring up the cutting issue of this, the weight cutting issue. And this is also in particular because of the 6-day notice maybe going to be a factor for Max Holloway.
Yeah.
Because, he was not preparing to fight at all. In fact, he's coming off of an ankle injury that caused him to have to cancel out of the fight with Frankie Edgar, last month. That was when Brian Ortega ended up fighting him. But interesting from the weight cutting aspect, George Lockhart is the strength or the nutritionist guy for both of them, right? And he said that this weight cut that he's doing with Holloway, it ties the biggest cut that he's ever attempted. He didn't name the actual weight that Holloway's at right now, but he said it's going to tie with the most amount of weight he's ever tried to help a fighter cut on short notice to get down to 155. But, you brought up an interesting point. I mean, obviously, Khabib's weight cutting issue has been a problem before. You brought up the fact that he's never hit 155 because of a title, because you get that 1 pound allowance. That's a very good point. But then you also brought up the fact that he hasn't had to go 5. And, I had not really thought about that, because you're right. His most recent fight against Edson Barbosa was 3. Michael Johnson was 3. He's just never been in that, and I guess maybe it's because of his inactivity dealing with injuries over the years and whatnot. But you caught me off guard with that one, because I would have, if you'd have just asked me off the top of my head, I would have thought that with Khabib, for as long as he has been considered a top of the division main event fighter, and as long as the UFC has had 5-round main events, even when they're non-title fights, I would have just naturally assumed he's been in one. But with his inactivity, always trying to work toward that title challenge, circumstance dictates that he's never been in it. So what you're saying is, even though we saw him ragdoll Edson Barbosa or Michael Johnson for 3 rounds, that maybe if we had to see him do it for 2 more rounds, that even when you're winning, even when you've got the top position, that's still sapping a whole lot of energy for somebody who has a hard time making weight.
Well, and with a guy who doesn't break, Max has some factors going against him. Now to flip on the other side, the guy on 6 days' notice, I don't know. I'm going to make the assumption that he's been in the gym, that he's been training and has a level of fitness because he took the fight. I can't imagine he's going to show up and just get smashed in around because he gasses out. He has a great gas tank when he's in shape. So I'm assuming that he's in a decent amount of shape right now. And Max is, I've seen him in more than one fight, where he doesn't win the first round. He comes on strong. So if there is a conditioning issue with Khabib, Max Holloway is the worst kind of fighter to find out if that's going to, to go into deep waters with, because Max's 4th and 5th round, he'll be stronger than he was in the 2nd and 3rd. Definitely in the first. First round right now, if you said, hey, I mean, that to me is the easiest round to guess who's going to win. I'll be like, oh, Khabib. If you told me right now, pick who's going to win the fight, I'm all, you know what? Ferguson has a lot of things going, or Holloway has some things going against him. Khabib probably is better prepared, having the full camp. Smart money's probably going to have to still be on Khabib, but I don't think that Max Holloway's it's a complete blowout. I mean, I have some ideas on why he could win the fight, but if you say who's going to win the first round, oh, Khabib. Even if Max Holloway wins the fight, I still think Khabib will win the first round. His aggressiveness, his ability to go in and take down and get in good position. And Max Holloway is kind of a slow starter. He goes out there and kind of feels you out and then comes on. And you really saw that like in the Jose Aldo fight, where, the first round, I thought, if I recall correctly, I think Jose Aldo won the first round in their first But then all of a sudden, it's like Max just starts landing shot after shot, keeps coming forward. And you'll see somebody like Jose Aldo, to me, was never a good 5-round fighter.
Correct.
He's a explosive athlete, and I always thought for 3 rounds was phenomenal. In the 4th round, he's okay. In the 5th round, he's just trying to survive. And you saw that throughout his career. Whenever someone got into the 5th round with him, he coasted. The first time I remember seeing it was when he was with, speaking of Jose Aldo, was when he with the California Uriah Faber.
Yeah.
And everybody goes, oh, Uriah Faber was basically getting picked up, I think, in the 4th round, carried over to his corner. Like, oh, this fight's done. And then Jose Aldo kind of shut down. I was like, oh, it's kind of merciful. I'm like, no, he actually gassed. He was fatigued, and not because of a lack of conditioning or effort. It's not. I think I've beaten this dead horse, horse to death here. It's just he's not that kind of athlete that can go for 25 minutes. Jose Aldo's an explosive. And I'm kind of thinking Khabib is that same kind of athlete. The guy is so explosive with his takedowns, his throws, his ground and pound is the best ground and pound I've ever seen. It's brutal, right, when he hits people on the ground. So it's a lot of fast twitch fibers that he has. is he that kind of athlete that can sustain that for 25 minutes? If right now you told me to make a bet on it, I wouldn't bet that he can. Max now is not an explosive killer athlete. If I said right now, hey, pick that 50-pound sandbag up and let's see how far you can throw it, Max might not even be able to pick it up. But if we sit there and go, okay, there's a 20-pound thing, and now run with it and see who drops it first, he's going to run for the next 3 hours. The guy just doesn't have a quit button. He has good, red blood, red tissue. He just can constantly motor. He's just a great miler, One of those guys who's great middle distance runners that just, can keep on going, but not out the gate.
Yeah. Do you think the fact that now Holloway has an 83% takedown defense rate, that's against mortal humans. Do you think that that serves him particularly well against Khabib, or do you think that it may be one of those deals where when you encounter Khabib's suplexes, it's just a whole nother animal?
Well, I think the reason why is because Ferguson, or Holloway, I keep going back and forth. Holloway has a long reach, so people have to take shots from very far away from him.
Yeah.
So he's able to see it. And then I think the fact that he has such a dangerous submission game and he's able to attack the neck makes people leery to take shots on him. So it's going to be curious on really what Khabib, if Khabib just wants to just drive through it and take him down, I don't know, I really, the factors that are in there are kind of in the fight world. They're factors. It's like, well, they're in your head. Do you respect my right hand enough not to challenge it? Do you know what I'm saying? Whereas, if you respect my guillotine, well, now my takedown defense is awesome. Not because I defended a takedown, because you're too afraid to shoot because you're afraid I'm going to wrap your neck.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of guys have watched, Holloway's tape and go, change levels and shoot on this guy, you're probably going to get choked. He has a really good Darce, really good guillotine. So be very selective about your shots. And so that has done him well. Khabib might not be worried about it. He might feel very confident with being able to get out of guillotines. He has a thick neck, understands body positions well. So it just all really depends on whether or not his confidence on challenging that weapon on Holloway.
Yeah. Well, if the fight had to fall out, and if you had to replace it with another fighter, you know what? I mean, unless you're going to tell me, Conor McGregor's going to make an unannounced appearance on 6 days' notice, then give me Max Holloway all day long.
So this is going to be for the official.
Okay. Interesting you brought that up, because I'm still trying to get real clarification on that. But from what I have seen and read to some degree, it appears that one way or another it is going to be for the lightweight title. Now, that would require Ferguson to be stripped of his interim title, and that would require Conor to be stripped of his, actual lightweight title.
I mean, Conor is still the biggest name in MMA, but when's the last time he fought inside of a cage? I think now,
year before last.
Yeah, I think he broke my record. Not a record I cared to hold. I'm glad he finally overtook it, for the longest time between title defenses,
Yeah. So I don't, I think the Conor thing, I mean, whether or not it's fair to Ferguson, it's going to be a taller order to strip Conor of that title. But again, and we talked about this on the show.
Well, you can't strip Ferguson and not strip Conor.
Right. No, you'd have to,
Yeah, there's no way you can articulate that. I mean, I guess you could do whatever the fuck you want. You know what I mean? It's UFC.
No, well, the only thing is, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, but my theory about Conor wanting to actually not be a title holder so that he's not beholden to any sort of champions clause if he were ever to. And of course, he's going to renegotiate anyway at this point. He's going to negotiate fight to fight to come in. But it's funny because I was hearing Schaub talk about this, and he was saying, if Holloway were to win this fight, let's say they do strip them both, right? Ferguson and Conor, and then Holloway wins the lightweight title, then he is a two-division simultaneous champion like Conor was, right? Same two belts, featherweight and lightweight. And Schaub was saying, and then at that point, you would definitely make the fight if Conor's going to come back to fight Holloway. And I thought to myself, yeah, but you know what'll be crazy? I could see Conor making the stipulation that it's got to be a non-title fight. So he doesn't end up saddled with 2 titles again. I'm kidding. He wouldn't really probably do that. But in the back of his mind, he'd probably
if they
be
strip him
thinking
the title,
about it.
I think he's going to make the Diaz fight.
If they strip Conor.
Right. If he has to come
back.
back.
A Diaz trilogy
He'll
fight?
be like, hey, I've been out for a little while. Make a that's a selling fight, so the UFC will still be happy. Keeps him away from the title so he doesn't have to worry about the, champions clause.
Yeah, however...
But I mean, there's no way that the UFC can generate $100 million paycheck for him. So I wonder if his ambition to continue fighting is still there. I mean, and it's nothing against him. I mean, I think that if you got, the whole, every professional MMA fighter from UFC, Bellator, and the ACB, and you threw us all in a room and be like, all right, I'm going to give you $100 million. Are you going to keep on fighting? Not even half those guys are going to say yes. Most guys are going to be like, well, shit, no, I'm done. I'm going to just go ahead and vacation the rest of my life. You know what I mean? A lot of people get into fighting because they're poor. And he got into fighting because he was poor. The guy was living off of welfare. He was driven for financial reasons. Was one of the burning, ambitions he had was I was dirt poor, living off of the government. And then now he's rich as shit. It's like, do you still have it in you to want to go fight? And it's not like it's like, well, I can go collect $100 million paychecks again. It's like, no, that was the one-off with Mayweather. Yeah. Maybe if you can get De La Hoya to come out of retirement, we can get you one of those again. But you're not going to see that. There's nobody else in the MMA world that's going to generate the kind of fight you had with Mayweather, that kind of revenue.
Well, yeah, and I don't think it's been quite enough time for McGregor to go through it all. That's the other problem, too. He's probably got some of it left, Like, actually, I had to have the conversation again Sunday night after my comedy gig with someone where I explained to him that it's possible for Floyd Mayweather to go broke. It was it's always the same. It's always, no way. Yeah, give it time. Give it a little time.
Well, I mean, Tyson went broke.
Yes, he did. Yes,
$300 million?
Hey, I always say about Mayweather, and of course we're talking about this in relation to Conor, like, would you ever fight again? I mean, no, if you're smart with the money, but if you're somewhat reckless with it, and he does seem to have a taste for finer things, and who knows if, you hope all that's being handled right in terms of taxes and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes for as bad of a reputation as the American IRS has, some other countries, I don't know specifically what Ireland's like, but some other countries are hardcore about taxes and stuff like that. I know Bjorn Borg, remember the tennis player? He got in a lot of tax trouble. Sometimes other countries are bad about it too.
Isn't Ireland like a good place for taxes?
I don't know.
I think it's like they have a corporate tax rate is really good.
Oh,
but I think
corporate taxes.
But personal income, I think, is not good.
Yeah.
Because isn't it like Amazon or Google, or I'm trying to think of somebody who's headquartered.
Oh, yes. But that's on the
Facebook
corporate. Yeah, that's on the corporate
There's somebody
side,
who's, one of the corporations basically does all their.
I think Apple's done some of that too, but that's on the corporate side of things. I don't. You know what Conor should do is call the MMA CPA.
Yeah,
he should probably check in before it's too late. But I think that the only thing. Getting back to that idea, though, of course, it seems like it always comes back to Conor. What would Conor do?
It's not too bad. It's about the same as the U.S.
Oh, the
40% is what his category is going to be in.
That's the highest. Yeah, you're right. It's about the same. Okay, so if Conor had the choice, though, of the Nate trilogy or Holloway, if Holloway was the simultaneous lightweight and featherweight champion. The reason I could see him taking Holloway is because right now Conor is the only guy who can claim to be a simultaneous two-division champion. He's the only guy that's ever done it. So if Holloway, if he were to get clear title, pun intended, to the 155-pound belt Saturday night, in addition to the 145 that he's already got, Now all of a sudden he just did what Conor's already done.
Yeah.
What's the only way to kind of reclaim that mythical record is to take it from the guy who did it second.
True.
But that's all after we get Conor to agree that he's coming back to fight again.
Max to go ahead and defend it, and then he one-ups Conor.
That's true.
Because Conor's never defended it.
You're right. If he defends it before Conor gets back in the game. Great point. Pull up, if you will, Mike, before we get off that subject, the Conor tweet. This was Conor McGregor's reaction to, there it is. These fools pull out more times than I do with my dick. That's a tweet from a good practicing Catholic right there, Frank.
Can't do that.
Rhythm method. Terrible idea.
Not allowed to as a Catholics.
Oh, I thought that's what they did.
No, they're not allowed to pull out.
No, they're not allowed to take birth control.
Yeah, and not pull out.
I don't know about that. That's what they always did. The rhythm method. That's what they always did.
You can't use contraceptives at all.
That's right. Yeah.
And pulling out is a form of contraceptives. It's like it is better to leave your seed in the womb of a whore than to put it on the dust of the earth. Is like the actual quote in the Bible. I might be messing it up, but basically, for you to pull out. God is more upset about you pulling out than if you were to go bang a whore and leave it in.
This is the one Bible quote that Frank can quote. It's the one that would ever come in handy. Oh no, well I given the two options.
God's watching, man.
Yeah,
I'm leaving it in.
I've never heard that one. That they're not even okay with the rhythm method. Well, I do know they have a lot of damn kids.
Yes,
and,
they do.
Conor just had one of his own, so there you go. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was Conor's 2 cents on what happened. Now, all of that.
I always forget because the Irish is he the Catholic Irish or the Protestant Irish?
It's got to be Catholic.
Oh, fuck, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no way Conor. Yeah. Because I think they had a whole christening and stuff for
Northern Ireland or the Protestants. I think in the.
Well.
There's someone in Ireland right now listening to screaming at the top because
I know,
like it's like everyday life to them. Like it's like,
well, it's where that's where you had like the whole battle with the Irish Republican Army, like in the 70s and stuff,
blowing the fuck out
car
of
bombs and all that. Yeah,
some dangerous motherfuckers.
Do you know there's a documentary on Netflix about Bobby Sands, who was one of the IRA members, and
I know the name. Yeah,
I have a vivid memory of this as a kid because I was probably, I don't know, 5 or so. He was in prison. He was he and his supporters viewed him as a political prisoner. He and the other members of the IRA that were in prison there in Ireland, and he went on a hunger strike and starved himself to death. And as a kid, I was like 5 years old or something. I remember them announcing on the news when he had died, and that was the first time I had ever heard of a hunger strike. And I was just like, at 5 years old, the concept that you would just stop eating and even when you're hungry, not eat when you could, but don't, and intentionally wither away and kill yourself. Like, that just freaked me out. And I never forgot like his name and his image and all that because of that, hearing about it for the first time as a kid. All right.
That's crazy, actually. Even though, like, watching them fight, I always assumed Holloway, but actually looking now at their matchup, Khabib has an inch in reach.
So he'll have, yeah.
He just but structurally, yes, but Khabib doesn't throw very long punches. He's a short puncher. He throws his punches short.
Yeah.
Whereas Max throws much longer shots.
Holloway's got a 1-inch height advantage. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see who looks like. Well, Holloway, Khabib's probably going to look like the bigger fighter because Holloway is thinner and all that. But I would be interested to see who's actually the heavier fighter coming in,
Yeah.
Because, you assume it has to be Khabib, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But maybe not as big of a difference as you would think.
Right.
Because Holloway cuts a lot to get to 145. He's not like a really big... I don't think he would be considered a really big 155, but he's a big 145. Wow. All right, now the co-main event. This is, talk about getting overshadowed by this turn of events with the main event. The co-main event, a championship fight in its own right, the women's strawweight title on the line. The champion, Thug Rose Namajunas, putting her title on the line against Joanna Jedrzejczyk, who she took the title off of via first-round knockout back at UFC 217. Now, the odds makers have this fight really, really close. I've seen some odds where Joanna is favored. I've seen some others where late money was on Rose, but really not by much at all either way. The first fight was a big upset for Rose. She knocked out Jedrzejczyk in the first round. Not known for knockout power, is, for that matter, known to have trouble with strikers sometimes, Rose Namajunas, when she has struggled. But she sure looked good in that fight against Jedrzejczyk. And Jedrzejczyk had, she had changed camps. I got something in my ear.
Oh, sorry, it's this.
It's okay. She had changed camps. She had weight cutting issues after that last fight, and maybe that's going to be different, or maybe it's not going to be different. I don't know. You think this is more a case of, an overachieving night for Rose, or do you think it's more a matter of she had the formula to beat Joanna?
Well, you know what? It's hard to tell in one round like that when you just catch somebody.
Yeah.
And Joanna got caught. And it's not the first time I've seen Joanna lose a first round. I thought in the fight with Letourneau, she lost the first round. Mm-hmm. The thing was that she was able to get out of the first round, and she made some adjustments and came back, and from then on just took over. With Rose, she couldn't get out of the first round, and she took a beating. I think now she at least respects that Rose does have the capability of, if she lands shots, she can't take her so lightly. And I think that, not to take away from Rose's victory, I think that Joanna might have suffered from a little bit of success, and maybe underestimated her opponent. And I know she's angry and ferocious right now. And so this is a fight, honestly, I think that she's going to be very cautious in the first round, while she's warming up and figuring things out, and then start turning it on. And I think that, if I had to bet, I'm actually in favor of Joanna, getting the title back.
Well, one thing we didn't get to see in that first fight, because it was so quick, first round TKO, is we didn't see what, if anything, Rose was going to be able to do on the ground against Joanna. And one number that jumps out with Namajunas' 7-3 MMA record is that 75% submission rate. So if the fight were to go to the ground, which is not a place that Jedrzejczyk is known to be strong, maybe there's a whole other advantage there for Rose, and maybe we just didn't get to see it the first time around.
True. I don't know. I remember talking about this fight the first time, and I had Jedrzejczyk as a heavy favorite.
Right.
I was completely blown away that Rose was able to catch her and put her away the way she did. I don't know. I just... If it had been a 4 or 5 round beating or 3-round beating and Rose put it on her, I'd be like, she dominated her. But to beat her for 3 or 4 minutes and catch her, caught her really hard with one shot and stunned her. And I don't think Joanna was able ever to get back. And instead of, letting it go and resetting, she kind of kept trying to attack and force the issue, and she wasn't quite back and caught that vicious left hook that put her out. And then, so I think that was part of her ego. I think she was angry that she got dropped by Rose and was trying to get it back. And I think now she's in a fight more calculating and not make that mistake. I think that mistake came from, how dare you, I'm undefeated, I'm the best in the world. And that was the wrong mindset that got her in trouble.
Yeah. Well, it's always exciting when the UFC has dueling title fights for co-main events, and such is going to be the case Saturday night for UFC 223 there in Brooklyn. Also on this fight card, on the main card, Anthony Pettis taking on Michael Chiesa. Number 9 Chiesa taking on number 12 Pettis in the lightweight division. This one is interesting because, Chiesa is a guy who, after winning the Ultimate Fighter, it hasn't been the most rapid of ascensions, but I think is still maybe has, certainly his best days ahead of him in the UFC's lightweight division. Beating a former champion like Pettis would be huge at this point for him, even though Pettis has fallen on some hard times. But the case of Anthony Pettis, Frank, 3 years ago, Anthony Pettis was a 155-pound champion. He was on a box of Wheaties, and he was talked about as pound for pound among the best in the promotion. What do you think has happened to this guy?
I don't know. That's something that every time we see him now, it's just, I don't know. The guy has great striking, great submissions. I mean, his wrestling's not his strong suit, but he just, I don't know if, you know, in other sports they play so much that if you hit a slump, you know, a batter can, you know, in baseball, you can have a 10-game, you know, dry spell. But it occurs over a 3-week period, 4-week period. You can get through it, you know. Where if you have like Anthony's had, where you're 6-7 fights, that takes place over 2 or 3 years. It could be career defining, where you don't have that amount of time. So he's just, it seems to be like in a slump, you know. He's not been the same guy that we saw go out there and take out, when he won the championship and even defended it. When on the Ultimate Fighter, I forgot who's his opponent. The Diaz brothers guys.
What are you thinking of now? Oh, you're talking about Gilbert Melendez.
Yeah, Gilbert Melendez. Who
that was his last title defense.
Yeah, and ever since then, just
You look at Pettis over, and that was back in when was that? That was back in 2014, the end of 2014. So you look at what's happened to him since then. Pettis is 31 years old. He's had 27 fights. But he has lost the last 5 of 7 since that Melendez fight. He went on a 3-fight skid to Rafael dos Anjos, Eddie Alvarez, and Edson Barbosa, all by decision. He got a win. He got a submission win over Charles Oliveira, which was a lesser caliber fight. Now, that was when he tried fighting at featherweight. Remember that?
I remember that.
So he drops to 145. He gets one win at 145 back in August of 2006, but then...
And it wasn't like he was looking phenomenal in that fight.
No. He got a third-round submission against Oliveira, but then came the Holloway fight. That's where Pettis missed weight because that was supposed to be for the...
didn't Holloway stop him in like 2?
Yeah.
Against the cage, I think he beat him down, right?
Yep. Third round. TKO'd him in the third round. He did get a unanimous decision over Jim Miller when he went back to lightweight, but then lost his last fight in the third round, 2 minutes into the third round against Dustin Poirier. I mean, he's always fought. Of course, he's in that division where lightweight division is always a murderer's row. I mean, you start running down those names, and
they're not chumps.
They're great names.
Well, I think the reason why I'm so hard to come up with an answer is because he still fights the same. It looks like to me he's using the same techniques. It's not like he's had a style drift. You're like, well, he's opened up his stance. He's trying to take more shots. He's trying to, he's doing something different. It's like, well, what brought him to the big game in the first place is striking, and his submissions he still has and he still kind of uses, but it doesn't seem to have the same effect that it was having. Like, so I don't know what the missing component is.
Yeah, I don't know either. Do you think that could have anything to do with the fact of, like, back when he was winning, back when he was champion, the fights against Benson Henderson, the win he had over Cowboy Cerrone when Cowboy was still lightweight? I mean, is there anything stylistically about those fighters then compared to the fighters now that he faces? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, it's happened. I mean, speaking about Benson Henderson, who's fighting the night before over in Bellator.
Yes,
he's somebody else too that has just, I mean, I think his last 2 fights have been losses. I mean, split decision losses, but struggled too. I mean, I think everybody, when he went over to Bellator, thought, oh, he's going to run the division. And I think right now he might have 1 victory over there.
We looked at it. We talked about his last fight.
1-3?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Now he's fighting Roger Huerta, who I didn't know Roger Huerta was still fighting.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he must have, I think he's actually had periods of retirement maybe, or just inactivity so long that it mimicked a retirement. Yeah. It'd be a I like Chiesa in that fight, I think. I mean, Pettis, if Pettis is going to turn it around, this is certainly a time to do it, because if you're going to stay in that top 10 conversation, you're going to have to be able to take out a guy like Chiesa, who belongs in the top 10, no doubt. But, I mean, sitting at number 9 right now, you know, Pettis loses this fight, and I don't know what happens from there. Also, Al Iaquinta is returning after contract disputes and injuries and all that sort of thing. He's taken on Paul Felder. I think that is kicking off the main card. That's a pretty exciting fight to kick it off. So a good night of fights Saturday night, but of course the big injured elephant in the room is Tony Ferguson having to pull out there at the last minute. And you see Dana White say he would never make that fight again.
Yeah.
Hell no. I don't know if I believe that. I mean, I know it's crazy. Now, maybe if
Chuck Liddell's fighting again, so I mean,
yeah, I mean, maybe if it takes care of itself, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like maybe if one of those guys falls out of contention over time or whatever. But I think if everybody heals up and those two guys are still in the same hypothetical conversation, you got to make it again.
Yeah.
All right. Let's turn our attention toward. We were talking about Conor McGregor and his inactivity earlier. Talking about somebody who's just has flat out left the UFC for WWE pastures, Ronda Rousey. I wanted to ask you if you had not seen any of this interview footage yet, right, from this week. Okay, so here's what's been going on this week. Before you play this, Mikey, hang on one second. Wrestlemania is Sunday, and Wrestlemania is the Super Bowl of the WWE's year. This is the biggest night that they have all year long. This is where they pull out all the stops. I've actually been to a Wrestlemania, and it's a huge event. I was stunned at how gigantic. I mean, they have it in a football stadium. You know, the one I went to was in Orlando. I mean, it was in a stadium that held, I don't know, 70,000 people or something crazy like that. And it's like an all-day affair. I mean, I think it starts at, mid-afternoon and goes late into the night. And there's fireworks and there's all this, pageantry going on. It's very impressive. Well, the WWE a couple of months ago, has it been a couple of months now, 6 weeks, something like that, I don't know, officially signed and debuted Ronda Rousey. Now, Ronda Rousey's been a professional wrestling fan for a very long time. She would go even on her own time. In fact, famously, a couple of years ago, she went to WrestleMania ostensibly as a spectator and then, got involved, quote unquote, with the outcome of the match just as a fan. And I think from that point on, people always wondered, would you ever see her in the WWE? And, of course, now here she is. But she was out doing press for WrestleMania this past week on big sports shows like ESPN. What's this one we're looking at here?
This is on Mike Golick's show.
Yeah.
And then this has both clips. This
okay.
Video.
All right. So let's listen. This is her with Mike Golick. This is televised on ESPN. And the thing is to watch for is she's up there, Frank. Now, the WWE has debuted her as a heroine or a good guy. They call them baby faces in wrestling, the one that the fans cheer for. She's not a villain. In fact, the storyline has her taking on the evil McMahon family. They vilify themselves on television. So she's taking them on. So to the fans, she is this heroine that they're cheering. But, boy, she's got a real sour attitude when it comes to these guys asking her about the couple of losses she had in the UFC. Keep in mind, this is the first time anybody's really heard her interviewed, for the most part, since the Amanda Nunes lost in the UFC and then exiting the promotion. Let's listen.
And start with when you knew from the MMA, when you were done there, when you knew in your mind, I'm not going to fight anymore.
I never said that.
So there is a possibility that you could go back in time?
There's a possibility that I could go back in time? That's your question to me?
Go back in time and fight. Go back in the octagon.
I do not have the ability to go back in time, no.
No. Would you fight again?
I don't know.
Okay.
All right, pause it there. That's interview number 1. Now, Frank, you've done a million of these interviews. Tell me if you disagree with this. I think that even as big as MMA has gotten, and it's not like the old days, some of the stories you've told where, you know, they get you on morning radio and you answer questions like, are there any rules to this thing, you know? But still, Mike Golick, whose name, I don't know anything about him, but I've heard of his name. Yeah. He's busy covering Tom Brady and LeBron James and these kind of sports. He's probably not dedicating a lot of hours every day to mixed martial arts.
Probably not.
So you got to understand that when he has a name like Ronda Rousey on that's a household name, if he's been told that she's not currently taking MMA fights, that he might ask a question about, will she fight in MMA again? I just think that's a reasonably fair question.
I think it was actually a fair question even for a hardcore journalist.
Yeah.
So, hey, I know you're doing the pro wrestling right now.
Right.
Is there ever, you know, is it still in the back of your mind that you'd like to go back to, you know, fighting in the MMA world? I mean, you know, I don't think it's that crazy of a notion.
Yeah, and then the inflection of, so if you could go back in time, would you in time go back to fight? And she took it literally as, I don't have a time machine.
Well, she carries such a bitterness towards anybody who talks about her losses. And all fighters, we hate to lose. And there's obviously anger and, you know, and that makes you driven. But there's a certain point where you have to kind of wrap that up and let it drive you in the right directions when you're in the gym, when there's something positive you can do about it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, like Ronda would never survive in a locker room with a bunch of other guys because, you know, the minute we smell that on you, that blood in the water, it's like, oh, you're a little sensitive there, huh? Oh, that bugs you, huh? We would fuck with her till no end. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what? Are you a princess? We can't, you know, you thought that you were never going to fucking lose? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to face top flight competition and never going to have someone going to land a shot on you? Like, it's unrealistic. Yeah. And so the fact that she's so frustrated and just like, you know, appalled and carries her anger so openly, it probably is, you know, it's going to hinder her from ever continue on fighting.
Well, and keep this in mind, too. If there had been a lot of interviews, or even just a handful of interviews, really, that she had done since leaving the UFC, if all those questions had been answered one way or another, hey, you know what? I'm probably not coming back. I think I am done with MMA, or maybe I will one day, but you know what? Right now I'm really going to focus on wrestling. I mean, this guy and a few others have got to ask these questions not only for themselves, but for all the other people that haven't been able to ask her that question since she left me. I was at the post-fight press conference when Amanda Nunes beat her. She didn't come to that either. I mean, it was she lost the fight, and that's the last anybody saw of her in the UFC. So she got in a car and took off and was not seen again in the promotion. So that now you might think, okay, well maybe that was just one bad interview. You know, maybe cross signals or something like that. Well, here she is with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith during the same press junket, and this one gets awkward too when Max Kellerman says to her, you know, I think you deserve more credit than you got for the fact that you only had 2 losses in your whole MMA career, and people act like it was the end of the world. She didn't take this too well either. Let's listen.
Rhonda, what they didn't play in that preview that they heard Stephen A. and me talking about you was I said that you were a woman who, through your fighting, when you became such a big deal that when you lost, it's like the earth stopped spinning on its axis. And that's the part I chose to focus on after your loss in the UFC. Like, why is everyone talking about, oh my God, she lost, is she over it, all these kind of things, when you achieved such heights that one loss, the whole world stopped and noticed it? Why do you think there was a kind of negative backlash to you after the loss? In other words, people, and you must be aware, in the MMA world, there was a lot of talk, well, she was overrated, she was this, she was that, and my point of view was, at the time, and remains, that you achieved amazing heights. Almost no one wins forever. Everyone suffers setbacks, but there seemed to be like an unusual amount of negative pushback after your loss. Did you not experience that?
I experience a lot of people who quote some people that are really just afraid to state their own opinion.
Do you think it's my opinion? No, that's not my opinion. I can tell you right now, that's not my opinion. I thought you achieved amazing things. I was and remain a big fan of your fighting and of you. That's not me saying some people meaning me. That is me saying I read and heard from others and defended you.
Well, thank you for defending me. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Ronda.
She couldn't even hear the question. She's so upset and so sensitive towards losing the fights that she lost that she wasn't even hearing what Max Kellerman was saying. He was just trying to sit there and go, well, why do you think there was such a, an explosion? Why did everybody jump on the fact that you lost? It's like, well, because I was so great.
Yeah,
I was considered unbeatable. I created the female division in MMA. All the other women now are going to be able to make their careers based off the work that I put in. For the love of God, she was the fucking ESPY award winner. Like she reached heights that most men in the world of MMA are never going to reach. And that's how people are. When you are at your ultimate height of just fame and success, they love to see you fucking fall on your face. And no one was at a higher level of prestige than Ronda Rousey. So when she fell flat on her face, they all jumped on it. And then what makes it worse is that everybody that disliked, that wanted to sit there and go, aha, the haters of the world, they can smell how sensitive you are to it. Like, that's why, no one gives a shit that Dominic Cruz, when he lost his fight to Cody Garbrandt.
Yep.
He walked out there and goes, hey, man, the guy kicked my ass. This is how he did it. He fucking gave a great breakdown afterwards. And it's like, what are you going to say that he didn't already say about himself?
And for those who say, okay, well, as big of a name as he is, that's still not the level of Ronda Rousey. I'll tell you something that is at that level, Conor McGregor.
Conor's bigger than Ronda.
Sure.
And guess what? When he got choked out by Nate Diaz, which was way worse than getting knocked out by Holly Holm, who was the undefeated girl coming in, no one thought Nate had a chance against Conor. That was a way bigger upset. He got stomped by Nate. He put his suit on, showed up at the press conference, didn't storm out of the fucking cage. He walked in, goes, hey, his energy was better than mine. He made his things. He took it like a fucking man.
And the very next day, he was back to being Conor McGregor.
And guess what? No one really, it was one of those things like, well, you know what? Yeah, it happens. Where I think that if Ronda would have handled it that way, it'd be like, look, shit happens. I got caught with a kick, got caught coming in, and then with I think people wouldn't hold on to her. But it's the fact that after the loss with Holly, the media blackout leading up to the fight with Amanda Nunes, I'm not going to do any interviews. And I'm not going to talk about the fight. If you show any clips of that fight while I'm around, it's like. And then what that does is that anybody that's even kind of neutral with you, they're like, who the fuck do you think you are? All of us fucking have highlight reels of getting our asses kicked. You know what I mean? Like, you watch I watch clips of, whenever they're doing things, I'm like, oh, there's me eating a punch from Junior Dos Santos. Mm-hmm. Or, one time I was sitting next to BJ Penn and we were laughing. He goes, oh, there's me. He's getting swept. His feet's getting kicked out from under by Frankie Edgar. Like, fuck, there's this scene coming up. Like, as fighters, if you fight long enough, there's going to be a clip of you getting your ass kicked. Yeah. Even if you win every fight, there's scenes within a fight that you can't win every second of every minute you're in there. But if you're that overbearingly sensitive to it, it only adds fuel to the people that dislike you or people that are even neutral. They're like, wow, it comes off even more kind of like egotistical. It's like, really? Are you better than everybody else then? Like, why are you not susceptible to the same things we're susceptible to? Yeah. Well, I've watched all these other guys lose at one point or another. I mean, shit, from Conor McGregor, who's a bigger deal than you are, makes way more money. We watched him get choked out and handle it all the way down. It happens.
Yeah. You know, I have had I've interviewed Ronda a number of times. That's always been great, positive, fine. And then I've had a couple of just not, I mean, they were in group settings, but private conversations where we were like, I mean, one was at one of your sparring sessions and things like that. We were just around, you know. I like her.
Yeah.
Every time I have talked to her, especially in those one-on-one situations, I find her interesting.
It's so weird, right? 100%. In person, I like her a lot too.
Yeah.
On camera, how she comes off, she's very dislikable.
Yeah, because in those one-on-one conversations, it's like there's no defenses that are up. And I tell you what, we weren't talking about fighting. I mean, we were talking politics, we were talking philosophy. I mean, she had a lot to say.
No, she's like a really sweet, nice person.
She was. And that's the part of it that just, I mean, I'm not mad. I'm just, it's not my place to be mad. It just kind of bums me out because, you know, you mentioned the Amanda Nunes and the media blackout thing and all that kind of stuff. So covering that fight, that whole fight week, from the media standpoint, what I remember about it was I remember feeling like I don't think she wants to be here, and I think we're kind of inconveniencing her by thinking about her. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. I mean, I literally felt that way. Like, you know, if you were just somehow contractually obligated to be here for the podcast, but I could just tell it was just you didn't want to do it. You'd done everything you could to get out of it. You even narrowed it down to where all you had to do was show up for like one segment and you didn't have to talk to me the whole week leading. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would just be like, maybe let's don't do it because he doesn't want to be here.
Which is so weird. If she just would put her guard down a little bit and you know, and just be herself on camera and just be more human, I think her star power would actually, it would do her a benefit. People really like her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the fact that she is so defensive and angry.
Yeah, the opportunity for that's come and gone.
You know, I worked the last WWE event that was in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
During the loadout, we all were kind of by the loading docks, which is backstage. And I saw her backstage, like, taking pictures with people and, like, hanging out. And I was just like so surprised because I've only seen her like on TV doing stuff like that, and I picture her as like she does her bit, and there's a, you know, when she's doing her bit, whoever texts like her driver, and the car is running, you know, and then she gets that's how I imagine her. Yeah. But it was a big surprise to see her, for me, to see her backstage like hanging out, smiling, talking to people, and, you know, just,
when the cameras aren't on her and she's not in front of journalists for whatever reason, I don't know why that switch flips on her. Yeah. She just does. There's like a disdain that she has. I mean, you can just see it there, like the way her hands are crossing her lap, the look on her face. I mean, as you're talking to her, you could just see that she's just fucking just doesn't like you. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, but she's not that way in real life. That's weird. Where it's like, yeah, like what you said, like back there, that's completely normal to me. Like, I've had her, you know, training with Travis, you know, her husband. She'd be in the gym over in the corner, hanging out, talking. Completely normal, nice, down-to-earth human being. I remember thinking that. I'm like, why don't you let people see the real side of you? Like, this is really who you are. Like, the other side of you, this angry side, like, you need to learn how to hide that or something, or, like, channel it better, because people are seeing this and, you know, you're giving them ammo not to like you, and it's kind of hard not to argue with them.
I will give her that. I know people love to see, you know, they love to build up heroes, and then they love to tear them down, and they love to see them fall and all that. Okay, fine. So if, you know, and she's not here to participate in this conversation, unfortunately, but like if what she would say if she were hearing all this right now would be like, yeah, but you don't understand because, you know, I've got all these people gunning for me and they're so happy to see me when I'm down and keep me when I'm down. Okay, but that doesn't mean you have to care about them. That's the part that I wish I could. I wish she would do herself a better service by just. You're right. There's plenty of, you know, assholes in the world, but that doesn't mean you have to care about them or you have to give them pay them any mind. You know? And
I would say to her, like, what makes you different than the rest of us?
Yeah.
Everybody who straps on a pair of gloves and walks into that cage has a significant amount of individuals that want to see them lose.
Yeah.
And when they do lose, are going to, on social media, yeah, the guy sucks, never should have been fighting, holy shit, you know, like the worst ever. Where'd they fight? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that's just, all of us get it. I've yet to see any fighter not have somebody or a significant amount of people that sit there and go, you suck. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, I'm not going to let those people influence to how I treat everybody.
And you don't suck. The thing is that to me, it's like those people have disqualified themselves from legitimacy before you even, as the subject, pay them any mind. And what I mean is this, like you just said, you know, somebody you lose a fight at a elite level like she did to Amanda Nunes or Holly Holm. The person who lost didn't suck. The person who lost got beat by another world-class champion athlete. So if, you know, from a cerebral standpoint, okay, so if somebody were to say to me, you know, let's say we had somebody respond to us on social media and go, you know, I disagreed with the point that Frank made the other night on this particular subject, and here's why, and here's my point of view. Okay, I'm listening. Yeah. But if your opening line is, Frank's the dumbest person I've ever heard in my life, you know what? I don't need to hear anymore because he's not. I know you're not. There's plenty. You're a smart person. So to me, if you're going to couch it like that in those extremes, then you don't even deserve any attention to begin with. And it feels like what she does is she gives those people the attention. Yeah, it feels like that.
Yeah, and she gets rattled so easily. So focuses on. It's almost like she's so defensive about that you could see that in the interviews. That like instead of focusing on the question and figuring out a way to answer it, she's almost like in her brain, she's thinking, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You know what I mean? That's what's going through her head. And it's like, you're not even listening to the question. You know what I mean? Like you're hearing it and you're thinking that they're bagging on you, and he's not even. Both those questions those interviews that she was in were not interviews that she was getting bagged on. I didn't take it that way. It was just, I mean, the one guy was asking like, hey, you know, like if you could turn back the clock, you know, would you do anything with your fight career? I mean, the way you exited it out, you know, I don't have a time machine. I can't time travel. No shit, Sherlock. I'm pretty sure that he understands that you couldn't fucking time travel. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, come on. You know what I mean? Like, it was just trying to get a conversation going because you haven't spoken to anybody since the last time you ran out of the ring with Amanda Nunes. You know what I mean? So no one knows what was going on, and people, because you're in the entertainment world, you didn't decide to go ahead and go into private practice or do something where you make money with people. Mm-hmm. Your whole career is based off of fans. Mm-hmm. If you don't have fans, then you don't have a career because that you've chosen entertainment. So because she's chosen to go into another field of entertainment and pro wrestling, she has to deal with fans. So then you're going to have to answer those questions. If she doesn't want to answer those questions anymore, it's simple. Go get a real job. Or, you know, go get a, you know, go ahead and become a nurse, police officer, firefighter. Go do those things. And then when people go to ask you something, you don't have to answer those questions because you don't pay my bills, you know. Yeah. But when you're in the entertainment world, you kind of open yourself up to that. And I think anybody in the entertainment business understands that. It's like it's a double-edged sword. You get to reap the benefits of fame with financial, you know, gain, and you know, hey, you get to cut in line, you get special treatments, you're going to get paid, you know, but hey, your life's going to be on display. You show up drunk somewhere, we're all going to know about it, and it's going to be on TMZ. Like, this is the trade-off that you're going to get. You don't get to go, I want all the good, but I don't want any of the bad. It's like, it's not going to work that way. In fact, the harder you try to avoid the bad, the more people are going to come in on you.
The way I would have handled that, because it is my passive-aggressive nature, and I would not have let her get off the hook that easily. And this is probably why I don't have a big gig on ESPN, is if I saw that she was doing that to me, I would finish the rest of that interview forcing her to do the entire thing in character. So what I would have said is this. Now, Ronda, at Wrestlemania, you're going to be facing Stephanie McMahon, who is a mother of 3 in her late 30s. Should this even be sanctioned? It seems like you could kill her in there. You beat Ronda.
You already got me stumped.
Fuck you. How about this one?
How would you answer that?
Ronda, you
that would be good. You painted me in the corner right there.
Yeah, Ronda, you won a number of your MMA fights by armbar very quickly into the fight. Yet I've noticed the confrontations you've had up to now in the WWE have really, if you've had any offensive at all, has really just been shoving matches. Was there ever a thought that, you could apply the armbar and really probably end the confrontation very quickly right there, or even like a rear naked choke, or do you actually need to brush up on the technique because you've been out of the cage for a while? It's weird. I didn't see it. Also, a couple of weeks ago, I was reviewing the footage. You picked up Triple H and put him through a table. Now, this is amazing. I know people talk to you, Ronda, about whether or not you would have been able to beat Floyd Mayweather in an MMA fight, but, Floyd Mayweather is a very diminutive male. Triple H is...
he's easily half the size of Triple H.
Yeah, Triple H is a guy who has got to weigh closer to 300 pounds than 200. Were you surprised at your physical ability to lift him up off of his feet while he struggled against you and throw him through a table? That was like the kind of strength that you hear about women having when their child is pinned under a vehicle and they pick it up. How did you have the strength to do it?
That's awesome. That's funny shit.
Oh, we're out of time. All right. Well, I mean, it's just like, God almighty. And the thing is, Mikey and I were talking about this. Mike, are you a wrestling fan at all?
Not for a long time, but
okay.
but I'm more familiar than.
Yeah.
Were you back in the day with Stone Cold and all those guys?
Yeah, that was the Attitude Era. Was my era as well. Yeah.
See, I'm the same. I will watch WrestleMania on Sunday. I mean, I'm the same way. I loved it as a kid. Now it's just kind of,
it's funny because I like the old era. Well, to me, the old era is Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Right. So the '80s.
Yeah.
And then the '90s when The Rock and Stone Cold and Mike Goldberg,
Bill Goldberg,
so
would have been funnier if it was Mike Goldberg.
That era. That was when the Hulk Hogan was wearing the black spray-on beard.
Yes.
Was cool. But then the modern era, though, I have a harder time. It's really entertaining. Like if I'm flipping through the channels, they could do all kinds. To see a guy who weighs 250 doing backflips and shit, is impressive.
Yeah.
But there's a much more. I don't know if I'm really a demographic that they're aiming for. There's a lot of shaved bodies and a lot of oil and you know what I mean. Like there's a couple times I've turned it on. I'm like, if someone walked in the room and watched me watching this right now, they might question what team I bat for.
I saw Rogan do a great bit. It hadn't been that long, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, at the Comedy Store about pro wrestling. And a lot of times that's where comedians will go to try out, new bit, somebody of his level. So I don't know if he's put it on a TV special yet, or I hope he does, because it was hilarious. It was that same thing, all the homoerotic images of pro wrestling. But I go back to, I liked it growing up when it was before it, because now it's very kid-friendly. I mean, back then I liked it. I was watching it as a kid, and there were a lot of kids there. But man, it was dark and dirty and white trashy, and just in barns. And I mean, this was before Vince McMahon really became an international brand. So there's elements of it that I find appealing, like watching carnies interact with each other. And I will watch it Sunday, but I just Ronda is coming in, like I said, as the good guy, as the heroine. So I wonder how quickly it's going to be, though, before, if they really wanted to, what they call a shoot in wrestling, Frank, where, everything's scripted, but, sometimes the shoot will be either I take an actual hard physical shot at you or you to me, or I say something where we go off script. Like I know something, really personally hurtful about you, and I somehow work that into our promo to give it this real edge. Sometimes that sort of thing does not really at their level, because they're like the Walmart of pro wrestling. But traditionally in pro wrestling, you would see things like that. I just wonder what it's. First of all, if that were the case, I would be bringing up, Amanda Nunes and that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna try to YouTube
shoots.
The craziest shoots
Oh,
ever.
yeah. I'll show you some stuff. But the other thing I would do, too, I just want to be in the room the first time they explain to her she's got to lose. Because that conversation's going to happen, you know? I mean, that's going to be an actual conversation where it's going to be worse than the losses to Holmes and Nunez because at least you didn't know you were going to lose until you got in there. You're going to know it before you hit the curtain. They're going to be a sit-down meeting about you losing. That's not going to go over well.
Yeah, because every wrestler loses. Good guy, bad guy. You have to lose to set up other stuff later on.
That's right.
You know, Hulk Hogan lost. Everyone has lost.
Okay, well, you can explain it to Ronda then, Mikey. sounds like you got the rap down. They'll bring Mikey in to break the bad news. Hey, so, you know, Max Holloway's got the fight of his life against Khabib Nurmagomedov. Ronda Rousey's got a very high-profile fight at WrestleMania Sunday. But I got a fight of my own tomorrow, Frank. You have a fight. My gosh, what am I talking about? You yourself have a big fight against a Russian legend, Fedor Emelianenko, coming up April 28th in Chicago. But with all the focus on all of that, not a lot of people are talking about the fight that I have tomorrow with the Summerlin Homeowners Association. I've been cited, and I have a hearing tomorrow that I have to attend. Well, Jennifer had, prior to Christmas, had admired these lights that you see at like Lowe's, like Edison lights. You know the Edison light bulb, like the old-timey looking light bulb. They look like vintage light bulbs, but they make them now, right? Maybe can you look up like a Edison light, like gazebo lighing or something like that. We'll find something online. It's oh gosh, now you're giving it away. We're jumping to my housewives. This is something for the ladies right here. The next 20 minutes or so between this and okay, there you go. So look at that, Frank. You got an Edison light bulb.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So imagine those. Now see if you can do like gazebo lighting or something like that with the Edison light bulbs. Okay. So what you're seeing a lot now, and we got this idea, Jennifer and I went to this backyard party at this friend of ours' house in L.A. In the fall, and he had these lights strung across his backyard. So, yeah, like that one, no, go up with a wood right there, hit that. Okay? So, like that, he had them strung across his backyard, and it lit the backyard like landscape lighting kind of, except it's overhead, right? Okay.
Yeah, we have something like that at our house too.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, good thing you don't live in my neighborhood with the news I'm about to break to you. Okay, so Jennifer liked the look of this. I love the look of it. And so for Christmas, she got, it was actually from my mom. My mom sent us 4 strands of these lights to put in the backyard. Now, these are heavy-duty gauge. This is not like Christmas tree lighting stuff. These were like $80 a strand. So this is like $350-something worth of lights, right? And they're meant, outside year-round and things like that. And they look very nice. So I get out there and I take the 4 strands of light and I run them from my back porch to 4 different palm trees in my backyard, and I string them up with a steel cable. Pardon me. Get some real water here. So I do that right around the new year, and we've been enjoying them. Well, I get the letter from my home. Gosh, sorry. I get very choked up talking about it. It's not easy to talk about. Excuse me. All right. So I get the letter from my homeowners association notifying me that we're having a hearing tomorrow that I can attend, unless I want to just plead guilty, and that I'm being cited with a violation which refers to the prohibition of any type of string lighting, i.e. bistro, lantern, cafe, etc. It may be up on an occasional basis, but not to exceed 48 hours. The hearing is notice of the violation. I will be fined $100 for my failure to correct the violation and $100 on a weekly basis until the violation is corrected. Now, spoiler alert, I will be there tomorrow to vigorously plead my case. If they think that this was just going to be a no-show on my part, they're sadly mistaken. But look at this. It even comes with surveillance photos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they're out patrolling the perimeter. I'll hand that over to you. If you look closely enough, you can see the cable that's strung over the top there, right? Now, would you describe that as unsightly?
No.
I mean, you kind of have to look closely to see it during the day, don't you? And the only reason they could snap a photo of it is because you can just see the top of it just over my wall there, right? Now, I understand that we don't want people to have their Christmas lights up year-round. And if that's the spirit of the law, and I'm testing out my defense, by the way, on you guys, Mikey and Frank.
I want to hear what your arguments
Yes.
are.
I mean, I understand that if the idea is that you don't want people leaving their Christmas lights up year-round, I get that. You know, the cheapy wiring, things like that. I mean, for that matter, it could probably create a fire hazard over time if they're out there baking in the sun or whatever. But first of all, that's not what this is. Second of all, it's heavy-duty, meant to be outside year-round gauge cable. And secondly, it's aesthetically pleasing. It's like saying that, you know, you don't want to put footlights at the bottom of a tree. Like we see that a lot, right? Or the footlights that will line a path, a walkway. You know, are you telling me just because they're all strung together on the same circuit that they're unsightly? I mean, I don't know. You got an HOA, Frank. Would you which side of this would you come down on?
Well, I mean, I agree with you that I think that the spirit of the law is to keep away situations where things look ungainly.
Right.
But the fact that they're even bringing you in there makes me wonder that they're just going to follow it to the letter of their manual and their policy and be like, well, they're technically string lights and you're not allowed to have them up.
Yeah, they're going to try to hit me with the technicality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, how are you going to try to defeat that?
Well, I think what I'm going to say is maybe it's time to more narrowly define the scope of the violation. Like if the idea is that, you know, again, my interpretation, okay, we don't want cheap wiring and Christmas lights up year-round, great. But let's define that separately from something that is actually landscaping improvement. And I would say there's not only this, but also foot lighting, like I mentioned, or accent lighting on trees, things like that. I mean, you look at my neighborhood. My neighborhood is nice, and then right across the street from us are like rich people's houses, like really nice houses. And it's like you look at what they have, and this is the kind of stuff they have. I'm trying to be better than I am. I'm trying to aspire to be them. Maybe that's what they're afraid of. Maybe they're afraid I'm going to do better for myself and jump out of their
to win
association.
Tomorrow, I wonder if, because reading now, they want to get you on the technicality that it's string lighting. If you were to get copper tubing and put the tubing in between each joint, that no longer counts as wiring.
I'm not sure I exactly follow you. That's something that sounds like I would try to do, and then I would screw it up so badly I'd have to call Travis
right now,
to come
if I put
over.
a copper tubing around this.
Yes.
And
The string. Cover up the string.
Right, cover up the string.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I don't know.
Sort of out technicality then. Is it technically no more? It's
Yeah,
not
that's how my
string
brain
yet.
always thinks.
It's
Yes.
not
I'm always
string
like, okay, so what are you
anymore.
going to bring to the battle? It's a string. All right, well, fuck, now it's not a string. Now what are you going to do, asshole?
Yeah, yeah.
I'd be like, it's the same fucking light, the same visual obstruction that it was to begin with. So then once we get there that we want to be on technicalities, can we get back to getting into the fact that laws shouldn't be just based upon technicalities? That really it's about the spirit of what we're trying to pass, and we have to put it in some kind of wording to get a starting point.
Yeah.
And then once we have that starting point, that's why we have these meetings so that we can have open discussions to be like, does this really look bad? Is that what we're trying to avoid? I don't have Christmas lights strung up over my backyard.
Right.
You know.
Meanwhile, I've got a neighbor who has a very nicely kept house, but who flies his Seattle Seahawks flag banner in his flag holder pretty much year-round, and that doesn't necessarily bother me. But of the two, I'm just saying, if we were to consider which one of these could be perceived as a home improvement, I would say...
No, I mean, what you have right there looks really nice. I mean, and I understand what they have. I would think that they would go around and use it to avoid, again, like you said, somebody who's just... lining their fucking window up with Christmas lights.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, that's cheesy. It looks like shit. That's and I think that's what an HOA is supposed to really be about. Like, hey, we're all going to buy nice houses. We're all investing our money in here. I don't want to look over and see you fucking put your car up on fucking, cinder blocks while you're working on it in your front lawn. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. But then sometimes HOHs can be fucking insane.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
your old one had a crazy rule. Listen to this, Mikey. He could not only could he not park on the street overnight, they couldn't park in their own driveway.
In the driveway overnight.
Right?
Yeah.
Jesus,
the driveway had to be empty.
The driveway.
Well, especially if you get, you get kids who are going to start to drive. You're talking
that was my argument.
You're going to talk about 3-4 cars.
Well, and I have more cars than I have. I mean, between motorcycles, cars, I have more than 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden Bella's 14. I'm sitting there going, well, shit, what am I going to do in the next 2 years when she's driving?
Right.
Is she supposed to park outside the gate? I'm like, so my 16-year-old daughter, when she comes home at night,
has to walk.
What?
Yeah.
And also, too, like, you got to realize, like, the cheapest house on the block was like an $800,000 house. So it's like no one's parking a 92 Corolla in the front of their driveway. It's like, like...
That's the helps car, and they're gone by 4 in the afternoon.
Right. Everybody has nice vehicles. It's like, it's my fucking driveway. That bugged the shit out of me to no end.
Well, we all have our own El Guapos to face, and mine is tomorrow over my lighting. So I don't know. I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know how it goes. Speaking of keeping us posted, Frank, got to find out how training camp is going. Now, let me just say, of course, the big fight April 28th in Chicago. Frank takes on Fedor Emelianenko. We're all going to be there. The show will be there, and we'll all be in support. Now, I was texted this photo earlier from your striking coach, Angelo Reyes. There's Angelo, by the way, proudly wearing his Phone Booth Fighting T-shirt, which I approve of. Adrian's your strength and conditioning guy over there, big smile on his face. And I noticed James Horn, your main sparring partner and noted vegan. But what was confusing about the photo I got, I was like, I know these 3 guys. Who is this other guy? I said, did Frank not show up to training today? Because clearly this sculpted dude and his teenage body, I thought for a second, did Cage go spar with him? What happened here? Why was
Cage?
why was Frank not there today? And then I realized that's you. You're looking pretty good there, buddy.
Portion control stuff, and Aaron, who's been really it's getting a little on the brutal side though.
Oh yeah, you're starting to.
Yeah, it's starting to wear on me because I've been eating, good, doing all the things I'm supposed to be eating since January 2nd. And, fuck, man, I was heavy. 2 years of not fighting, just lifting weights and shit. And I told you when I started out, I was over 300 pounds. And now I'm 262 when I woke up.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, but yesterday I got my meals. And usually it's Vince that cooks my meals from Portion Control. And I don't think Vince cooked them this time because I pulled them out and usually put some variety to the things. And out of my 12 meals, 10 of them are chicken and rice with vegetables. I'm like looking at it, and there's a little bit of sauce on the chicken, whatever they could put on there. And I'm like staring at it. I'm all, so Jen's, because Jennifer's like, oh, you going to cook a meal? I'm like, yeah. Got chicken and rice or chicken and rice? I got chicken and rice.
Yeah.
She was... 4 more weeks, Frank. I'm like,
That's right.
I know, 4 more weeks.
Only a few more weeks to go. Well, it's really paying off. I tell you what, too, what's impressive to me about it is I notice it and I see you all the time. Normally, for me to notice stuff like that, I have to not see a person for a lengthy period of time, and then you notice it because you don't have anything to compare it to. But yeah, it's I mean, how you feeling the difference?
Yeah, I can bounce around a lot better. Jeez, yeah. And it's crazy. It's like almost like a cardio boost to take 45 pounds off your body. You know, in just 3 months. You know, so much fluid and bloatedness. I mean, I probably lost 15, 20 pounds of fat, and the rest is just all the fluid that your body's holding on to because of all that excess. You know, but yeah, I feel a lot better. It's funny because even like, here's the funny thing. So lately, in the last 2 weeks, I get noticed a lot more at the airport, everywhere else. Like, I can't walk anywhere now without someone going, "Oh shit, Frank Mir, Frank Mir." And for about the last year and a half, that hasn't been the case. And I kind of just wrote it off in my head. They're like, "Well, I haven't fought in a while, and this is what happens. You don't fight, you're out of the eye. You know, people forget who you are." Now I realize, because I was like, "Oh shit, man! I wonder if like people are running a lot of promos on me." And it really wasn't. I mean, Bellator started last week, but this kind of started, like I said, probably about 3 weeks ago, where it was just like, man, like, I mean, I can't get off the plane and not take 10 different photos before I get to my baggage claim. You know, like, well, what's the difference? You know, what's going on right now? Like, you know, social media, this and that, like trying to figure it out. I'm like, oh shit, man. I've been so fat that people don't even recognize me. I walk by people and they're like, "Hey, that guy looks like a fat Frank Mir." You know, because even the last couple fights I had in the UFC, I was heavy. Yeah. You know, and so I've been fat for the last couple years. So now getting back to being thin, when people saw me like fighting back with Brock and Nogueira and stuff, I look like what people probably see me more or less like in the 250s and 260s. You know, now it's like, oh, I recognize that guy. Yeah. The guy who walks around at 290 to 305. No one, you know. Yeah. Well, Jennifer was laughing. I'm like, I finally figured it out. She goes, "What is it?" I'm all, people actually, I don't look like the guy who ate Frank Mir.
Well, congratulations. It's looking good, and it's getting everybody even more excited about the Fedor fight. April 28th, it'll be on Paramount Network, of course. And like I said, follow all the Phone Booth Fighting / Frank Mir social media outlets, and you can watch the behind-the-scenes goings-on. I talked to Bellator this week and notified them formally that while they are used to seeing me in a media capacity, they're going to be seeing me in a different capacity on fight week during the lead up to the fight, which is backpack specialist. Yes. So they've made all the adjustments to my file, and I think they're prepared.
Ready?
Yep. And Datsu Sara has literally got my back. I talked to Chris Odell, too, from Datsu Sara. That's my backpack sponsor, because I only carry the best. And the pack is in the mail. They're sending me a custom backpack that is specifically made for professional MMA fighters. So maybe next week when we reconvene here, we'll have the backpack to actually look at. We might want to drill some with it, too. Yeah, we'll practice. You know, because we don't want to be caught flat-footed at the weigh-ins. I mean, you want...
Actually, I'm going to take advantage of you because, you know, now, I mean, I take so many different supplements and stuff.
Yeah.
Now that I really understand the whole supplement business, you know what I mean? Now I think before it was kind of like, it's all bullshit, you know? Like, I never really believed in any of the stuff, you know? You know, whatever. It's just, you know, just work out and, you know, try to, you know, just genetics. And now I could, especially me, because the first month I was really not losing weight. Like, I mean, fuck, man, Jennifer and I at the end of January, I really wasn't seeing any change in my body, and I was like fucking eating right, working out, and I was so used to before that if I was honestly applying myself, I could see results pretty quick. I'm genetically gifted, you know, blessed in that way. You know, you see it in my children. You know, don't have to try very hard, and fuck, this time I'm like, you know, I'm like, dude, I know that I'm getting older. I'm 38. I'm not 58. You know, like, it really is this much of a difference. And the stuff with, you know, with Dan Cox, you know, the Metcon guy, those things, you know, it just started steamrolling and started adding up. I also got a thing mailed to my house for vegan supplements. Is that you?
I would assume it would be. Yeah, he told me he was going to send me some vegan stuff.
No, not Dan, but Cranked.
Oh, I don't know.
We'll talk about it. Yeah. I got like a whole bunch of vegan stuff in my house. Sent to me, my name on it, but it was all vegan based. So I'm like, I wonder if that was Richard.
How interesting.
I got a ton of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Looks like cool shit too. Like, I don't know, you might be able to swing by the house and look at it.
I will swing by the house and look at that.
But but now that so I'll have definitely supplements that for real I'll be throwing inside your bag because I am definitely a believer now in helping yourself out because like I said, at the end of January when I was still in the 290s, Jennifer was like, "Shit, you might have to retire. You might not be able to, you might have let yourself go so far that you can't. I mean, your age and the fact that you're not, that you've gone this, long without dieting, even the last couple of fights you had in the UFC, you really didn't diet for properly. And now you're this much older, you might be screwed, And I was just, I mean, she's just being realistic with me, like, hey, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the writing's on the wall. And I was just like, no, fuck this. We're going to keep pushing through this,
Yeah. Well, I wanted to, before we wrap up here, for whatever reason, the last couple of weeks, traveling, all that kind of stuff, and when the shows that we've done have run long and all that, we really have not got a chance to mention this. So I just want to get your quick thoughts here, Frank. Maybe they'll be quick. We'll see. What is your overall thought on all of the controversy over the Parkland, Florida kids and what they are doing? The kids that survived the school shooting, which happened on Valentine's Day. And basically less than 2 months later, the kids have really created a massive movement. They're being very outspoken in calling for change, and some change that's already happened. Florida's raised their minimum age to purchase a rifle. Yep, and we talked about some of that. But the kids themselves are getting some criticism. Everything is politicized, and the fact that these are minor teenagers is no different. Some people will say, well, they're injecting themselves into the conversation, and sure, and maybe that means that you then engage them in the substance of that conversation. But for example, case in point, Laura Ingraham, the Fox News host, is taking a spontaneous week-long vacation this week because she lost a ton of her sponsors because one of those kids had tweeted from his Twitter account that he's applying for colleges. It's his senior year, and he was getting turned down by colleges that he wanted to get into, and she basically taunted him about whining that he was getting turned down for colleges. So it's a kind of a weird thing to take on a 17-year-old kid over, even if he's putting on his Twitter or his Facebook or whatever, hey, bummer, I got turned down for 2 colleges. You got some lady in her mid-40s going, ha-ha,
Are you serious?
Yeah. And so she had a number of sponsors cancel advertising on her show. And there's plenty of people on her conservative side that are saying, hey, that was a mistake. But it just... I want your thoughts, because my thought is this. I've heard so many people say, these kids, they're being co-opted. When I was a kid, I would take any excuse to play hooky from school. That's all they're doing. It's just like a kid can't possibly.
We had a fucking guy running around this campus with a fucking weapon and killing buddies. I mean, holy shit, guys. I mean, come on. I mean, I'm a pro-gun guy, but at the same time, you can't sit there and go, these are just kids looking for a fucking excuse to get out of school. I mean, they're a little bit more involved in the picture than probably the people that are criticizing them. It's like, wait a minute. They're actually living the consequences of some of the gun laws that we have, or lack thereof. The enforcement. That's always been more my argument. Like, look, we have plenty of laws on the fucking books. We just don't really fucking enforce any of them. You know what I mean? Maybe if we started there instead of adding more, it's like, that conversation can also be had. But to sit there and tell me that they're just that's I mean, come on, that's ad hominem. You're just attacking the person. It doesn't, which is a dumb fucking attack.
These kids, see. I guess this is the part that speaks to me because, fortunately I never had to survive a school shooting or anything like that. But at younger than 17, 16, 15, 14, I was socially engaged. I was a part of causes I believed in. I was looking forward to the day that I could vote, and I was already working on political campaigns that I believed in. And let me tell you something. I think that's a very positive sign in a kid, regardless of whatever they think. And I would say that to somebody who's raising a young Republican. I mean, I might disagree with them, but I would say to them, it is so awesome that your kid is interested, that they're engaged, that they're paying attention.
I would want to ask, okay, so what would be the circumstances that allows them to be engaged?
What? I'm sorry.
To have criticism about their engagement, that they're going out there and talking, like, for someone.
Why criticize that? Why criticize their involvement?
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't understand. I mean, they're being involved.
Yeah.
And they have a pretty legitimate catalyst for, like, hey, so what made you get involved? Some asshole decided to take a weapon to school and started shooting up some of my fucking buddies. Oh, yeah, I can see that kind of fucking being an inspiration to get you want to get involved. I mean, MAD, right? Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. The lady that started that, her kid got killed by a fucking drunk driver. It's like, hey, what made you want to start this? I had a personal experience. Oh, okay. Makes sense. I mean, most organizations that get started or most movements probably come from a firsthand experience of you dealing with the consequences or the negative side of a situation. And then you're like, hey, you know what? This fucking sucks. I don't like how this is. I would like to change it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, whether you agree with someone or not, like, to take that away from them, that's I don't know. I don't get that.
I also think this is a general fact. We can only benefit from an engaged populace. The more people that know why they think what they think, the better. Right. Now I might be in the minority. On some issues, I might say, oh, well, that may be true, but it turns out that of all these engaged people, there's fewer of me than there are of them, but that's still better than apathetic masses, because that's when we really get in trouble, when people aren't paying attention and just an opportunistic few get their way because they take advantage of the uneducated masses who aren't paying attention. Mikey, I want to ask your thoughts, because I know you're a gun enthusiast.
Yeah, I'm probably even more conservative than Frank is when it comes to guns. I think if you put yourself out there, you obviously are subjected to criticism, but
on the merits.
On the merits, right. I mean, at the same time, I think if you can criticize the news outlets for pumping these kids out there. And like I've read, these kids are skipping school, they go on CNN and stuff like that. So I think you more criticize the adults for if you want to have.
Oh yeah, there's a group. I mean, I thought about that.
I think that's a better criticism. I mean, these kids disagree with their stance. They've been through something pretty traumatic.
Yes.
And to say, whatever the kid's name is a piece of shit or whatever, there's a lot of stuff that's crossing the line. But I think that's a better. If you
want to be upset about the fact, like, here's my thing. Yeah. I said this to Carl Prince, the matchmaker for the ACB, and he holds pads.
British guy,
right? And I was sitting there, and it was one of those things where, like, I was watching TV, and I think I finally had CNN wherever I was. Where was I?
Probably someplace that ended with the word Stan.
Yeah, Azerbaijan. You're absolutely correct, sir. So I'm sitting there, we're watching TV, and the shooting stuff was talking about. And I'm sitting watching one of the survivors, and he's in D.C. with this nice suit and tie, sitting there on a podium, and I'm like, hey, who the fuck bought this kid a plane ticket and a suit? Like, he didn't have that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, wait a minute. There's people backing him up and taking advantage of these children because they have. So I get that part of the anger, but like what Mike's saying, it's like, I'm not going after the kid.
The adults for that.
The guy who bought him the suit, it's like, okay, are you now taking advantage of them as like, oh, now we have our martyrs. Now we have somebody who can be our.
You're using these kids and their traumatic incident as a prop. You're using them and that's kind of.
Yeah, but let me. Here's the thing, though. I mean, there's also a scenario where they go because they prioritize their want to be there, even if it's not out of something traumatic. Like at that age, I went to Bill Clinton's inauguration, and I was wearing a suit. I mean, you might see that picture and go, holy shit, what's that teenager doing there? How did he get there? Well, I wanted to be there, and I went with my aunt, and we got tickets, and I guess what I'm saying, that's not a literal analogy. I'm just saying that, like,
both sides take advantage of situations like this when it draws attention. And I think that you have a person who's legitimately has an inspired, a more pure prerogative or agenda.
Sure.
But I think some of the people around them are taking advantage of them. I do agree with that, but as far as, the one part about the movement that actually bugs me probably the most is hearing about, because, Bella and the kids, they're in school. They have kids walking out of classes. Oh, we're doing a walkout. I'm like, what percentage of these fucking kids even understand what the hell they're walking out on?
Well,
that's the part that kind of bugs me.
Yes, but let me say this. Ask that of yourself as a parent. And if your kids are not in the percentage that understand what all the trouble is about, you need to talk to the kids. Because I would hope that you would be raising them in an environment where they would know about it because they have a basic understanding of what's going on in the world. And I'm just saying that you relate these things to yourself, but not having survived the school shooting or anything, but just in terms of activism. If you met 15, 16, 17-year-old me, I am somebody who would have gotten on a bus if I lived in Florida and ridden to Washington.
Why you were getting on the bus. But I'm thinking, I mean, not just throw numbers out there, but if 100 kids are like, oh, we're all going to get on the bus, there's probably 5 of them like you that actually understands what the fuck they're talking about and actually maybe read about it, formed an opinion. I don't care what side they fall on, but you understand what what's going on here. Yes. The other 95 are just like, everybody else is fucking walking out, so I'm walking out too.
But we're seeing 5 or 6 of these kids emerge as the vocal leaders. So what? So to your numbers, and I think you're right about that. Those may be the ones who emerge as the mouthpieces. And I've even watching it, like even when they did the town hall and everything with them in the couple of days after it happened, I watch it, and they are kids. And they're also kids who weren't already aspiring to be in these positions. They just were victims of circumstance, literally. So, I would see certain small ways they would act, and I was thinking, if I was advising them on this, I would tell them, don't do this, don't do that, shy away from doing that. And then at the same time, you go, wait a second, I got to remember they're 17, and they are being put unexpectedly on this national stage. Yeah. I'm just saying I have no problem with if they are saying let's change a gun law, let's raise an age. If you want to make and this is, I'll tell you what, this is why I gave Marco Rubio a lot of credit. Somebody who I disagree with in a lot of ways politically, but he went to that town hall meeting when the governor of Florida did not attend. He went and, people booed him, and of course they were grieving and all the rest of that, and some of the kids were very directly critical of him. But to his credit, he showed up, he had the conversation with them. He still had, in large ways, an opposing point of view, but he did say that he was rethinking his position on things like high-capacity clips. He basically made the same argument that you've made, Frank. Now, I mean, just to put the whole situation in perspective, I don't know if you're aware of this, Frank, but, on our various social media, there are some who are now labeling Frank Mir soft on guns.
Because I don't think the people should have high-capacity magazines?
That's maybe when we've gone a little too far. When you're the most well-armed private citizen I know. I mean, but you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like that is really absurd. And that to me is when someone they can't see any other shade than black and white.
Yeah.
Like what and I was thinking about this the other day. I said, if you go ahead and just play out the logic, right? Play out the logic with someone who, and I understand your fundamental feeling of, I have a right to bear arms, and I do believe you have a right to bear arms. And even if you think it's not only for home defense, but also, it keeps the government in check and all that sort of thing, and that's fine. But if the government were to really take over, how's it going to happen when they come to your door? Do you feel like you're going to outgun them? Because you're not. And if they're going to have a tank, so are you going to have a tank? And then if you're going to have a tank, guess what? Your homeowners association is going to have an issue with it. You're going to have that conversation. I mean, you and I have talked a million times. Yeah. What are they going to do? They're going to cut off the internet. They're going to cut off your utility. Now, where your guns will come in handy is maybe you're going to fight for food with your neighbors. Yes. That'll come in handy. Yep. But this whole idea, and tell me if you got a different opinion, Mikey, but this whole idea that, it's going to be 1776 all over again and you and the redcoats are going to do battle with your muskets on your front door.
Well, I think the fact that
it's not going to be hand-to-hand combat.
But I do think that unless the government wants to just drop a bomb on us, which they don't, you want to keep the infrastructure somewhat the same. We see a lot of times, and I've really started debating this question more because I still don't think this really fucks up my idea that high capacity magazines should be eliminated because I still think that I don't need to have a 30-round magazine. I'll have 3 10-round magazines and be just as dangerous because I know how to reload on the go, but I train for that. So if you don't want to train for it, but you want to have the same skill as me, tough shit.
Your position was that the 30 mag
helps someone who's lazy.
A shitty shot be way more lethal before somebody can get to them and neutralize them.
Yeah, because things that pulling a trigger is easy. Now, keeping a weapon firing, that takes skill because a weapon is still a machine. It malfunctions. It runs dry. Those are where skill starts coming in. Okay, while people are putting rounds at me and I'm throwing rounds down at you, all of a sudden I have a type 1 malfunction. How quick am I going to be able to clear that, reset the weapon platform back on target and get it firing again, That takes skill. But if I have a 30-round magazine and I'm probably not going to go dry for a while, I can just pull the trigger and just until it goes, and then there's less opportunities for mistakes to be made. That helps out an untrained guy. But my thought of, having us armed as citizens does it still keep the military in check? For a long time, I used to think come on, dude, they got drones and tanks. But I'm like, yeah, but look what happens over in the Middle East. Syria and different areas where you have just guys with AKs hiding in and out of buildings. They give the U.S. Army quite a hell of a battle because the U.S. Army doesn't just go in there because we're intermingled with people we don't want to kill. We don't just, it's not like they're all bad guys. And it's like, all right, well, we could just we're going to mow down this whole building and drop a bomb on it. It's like we do make selection of targets, but a lot of times you got to put boots on the ground. And that's when soldiers then become a problem. And that's what would happen if our government ever turned on us. They couldn't just level a whole city. They'd have to go through there and go and find who are going to be the rebels. Well, guess what? The rebels are going to be hiding with other American citizens who aren't the bad guys. They can't just kill everybody indiscriminately. So a guy who's well-trained and understands explosives, survival skills, and has good knowledge of riflemanship is going to be a dangerous weapon.
Except that those explosives will not be legal.
No.
I mean, we can't do we then, and I see a side to what you're saying, but there again, do we then take the next step in the pro weaponry path and say, okay, well, then in that case we should legalize grenades and things we're going to need to make IEDs because
and I get it because now we have to start outweighing the consequences of what would most likely realistically more innocent lives be cost at.
That's what it's about. It's about realistic.
So that's what I said. So
yes.
Realistically, I don't think the government is ever going to take us over. I mean, I know people are like, at any moment. I'm like, well, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen in my
Not
lifetime.
Not that way.
No.
I mean, they will take you over in ways you'll never even know.
You know how they take you over? They put your ass in debt and you keep fucking working the rest of your life. There you go. It's like, we don't.
How about state?
Why would we want to kill you? Because you're going to work to pay off a credit card that you're never going to pay off of and pay us taxes, and you're going to go ahead and fucking run on this rat wheel, and then when you die, we're going to go ahead and give your debt to your children, and they're going to fucking enter the slave thing. Like, we're all enslaved right now as it is, and we have no chains. It's pretty fucking masterfully done.
Controlling the media, controlling the message.
Yeah. So I mean, like the whole brute force thing. It's like, look, we've moved beyond that. They don't have to brute force the fuck out of anybody. We willfully and actually very much, willfully went into slavery. It's like, well, watch your TV, grab your iPhone, you're happy, right? Yeah, I'm happy. Okay, keep it that way. You know what I mean? Like, so the idea of, but going back to what most likely cost of human life, having high capacity magazines, dude, I think it's just a no fucking brainer, man. You know what I mean? Like, no shit. I mean, hell, most of the time my concealed weapon I carry is a fucking revolver because it doesn't malfunction. If I pull the trigger and it doesn't go off and it doesn't go bang, all I do is pull the trigger again. And then voila, the chances of me having 2 duds in a row, slim to fucking none. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to worry about, cycling my magazines, which I do with my other weapons because, you don't want to keep a magazine under tension permanently, which a lot of guys do. They just load up their magazine. It's like, hey, when's the last time you fired that thing? Oh, a year ago. So you've had all those rounds under that spring under tension for a year? Yeah. Do you really think it's going to function properly when you need it? I don't know. But that being said, 6 rounds. That's what I have. In my brain, if I can't eliminate the threat in 6 rounds, I'm probably screwed anyways. Once I fire off 2, if I'm still in a gunfight, chances of my survival just dropped drastically. So as a defensive individual, I'm thinking, well, how can I best place 2 or 3 shots that are going to eliminate the bad guy in front of me? Not, the people with high capacity magazine mentality, to me, you're the same guys that think that, the people in the military, when you watch a movie and they're all shooting fully automatic, you probably think that's what a real gunfight looks like. Do you know that I don't know anybody in my life that I've ever met that actually has shot people and got paid for it, professional soldiers that would ever fucking hold a fully automatic machine gun. They would, it's like, dude, I'm not carrying that shit. It's too fucking heavy. The rounds, it's inaccurate. You might land the first shot and the rest are going all over the fucking place. They don't like them. Like, it's all semi-automatic. They pull the trigger, boom, 1 round. They're all riflemen. They know how to shoot. They know how to place their rounds. They're and you got to remember, when you go out in the field, you don't fucking have an ammo dump. What you have is what you carry. So, so the whole mentality of like, well, I should be able to have a 50-round drum on my shotgun. I'm all, why? Like, just because it's fun, you get to reload less at the fucking range? Like, fun versus some fucking moron who there's only going to be 1 out of a million of them, but that's all it fucking takes, is going to fucking load that shit up and walk to our fucking school and start unloading on people. And then it's going to be as hard as fuck for the other people to get to him because he's going to unload until that fucking thing runs dry.
Yeah. Where do you stand on all that, Mikey?
One thing, the Parkland shooter actually had 10-round mags in his AR.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
No.
But I still think the 30-round...
Yeah, but I just wanted to say, just in case anyone would...
No, good correction.
Bring it up. But the thing, you talk about a lot of things. I think those things matter in a gunfight. 30-round mag, 10-round mag, reloading a lot. These people who do the mass shootings, they don't walk into a gunfight. They walk into totally unarmed. I think you can go in with a pump shotgun and do almost as much damage as you could with the AR with a 30-round mag.
Well, the reason why I bring it up,
barrel, like you're talking about, so I think you're focusing on things like going from 30 to 10.
Here's my example.
You're wasting all that time.
Was it the congressman or the senator, the female from Phoenix that got shot in the head?
Gabby Gifford.
Gabby Gifford. The guy had a high-capacity magazine. He was unloading rounds. You know when they got to him?
When he ran out.
When he ran out of rounds.
Right.
When he had to change magazines. So my thought process is that, well, if he only had a 10-round magazine, they would have got to him after 10 rounds. Whereas he had an extended mag, so all of a sudden now he has 30 rounds. So he fired 30 times before he stopped firing. Then he goes to reload, and everybody goes, get his ass. Because once again, everybody else is unarmed. If a guy walks into a movie theater and I only have a knife on me, or if it's just me and a bunch of guys, I'm not charging you while you're firing. So one of the things I need for you to do is for you to stop shooting and start reloading. Most guys, it takes 2 or 3 seconds, if they know what the fuck they're doing, to reload. I mean, I've seen guys do it faster that know what the hell they're doing, but the average guy, sit there and go, okay, go ahead and be under heart rate going at 145, 150, change magazines right now. I guarantee it's with 3 or 4 seconds. I can cover a lot of distance in 3 or 4 seconds. I'm going to get to your ass before you fucking reload, and now, Now we got a fight on our hands.
Right. Well, and we've gone through periods where these were banned, and we didn't see upticks in mass shootings. It's not like there were mass shooters who were going, okay, finally, I'm not very proficient with the 10 round clip, but now that I can get the 30, I can do my evil before they can get to me, because there's not that thought process going into the madman's motivation.
The thing too of just giving to the other side. Yeah. That's my point too of it. It can be also a, it's like you're in an argument with your wife. It's like, okay, you know what? This doesn't really matter that much to me. Like it's not like it's, if you told me I can't have certain calibers, I'm going to start arguing. You know what I mean? Like, well, wait a minute. You can't have anything more than a 22. I'm like, well, fuck. What do you mean I can't have anything higher than a 22 caliber? I'm going to fucking dig my heels into the dirt right now. No. You know what I mean? I need a higher velocity round than a 22 mag. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to. No, I'm not buying that. Whereas this one, the 30-round magazine or high-capacity magazines, I'm like, honestly, dude, I can live without it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that bad. If it makes you feel better, not that a guy can't still walk in and do a lot of damage with a revolver, but it's like, take it. It's yours. You know what I mean? Like, give and take. You know what I mean? Whereas because look, it's like anything. If you draw a line in the sand instead of making compromise, then it's going to go one of two ways. Either I'm going to win or you're going to win. And if there's a line in the sand, that means if I win, life stays the same. But if you win, you're not going to be compromising with me anymore now. It's not going to be one of those things where like, well, hey, when I had the upper hand, you worked with me. It's like, well, shit, now you got the upper hand? Yeah, and you didn't fucking work with us at all. Shit. What are the chances of you working with me now?
Yeah. I mean, we already draw lines. It's like people who try to say, well, if you start down the slippery slope, well, we're past that. You can't have a machine gun. You can't have a grenade. We've already drawn those lines. I mean, there's other lines. So we do have to
countdown from the wife.
Oh, are you now? Okay. We do have to agree where
screw guns. I'm scared of the wives. Most armed man in the world. I'm like, fuck. The wife just said I gotta hurry up.
We do have to agree where we're going to draw, but the line also moves. I mean, the line evolves. Technology evolves.
But that's why I think that giving up concessions here and there is not a big deal. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We already done it. Like fully automatic machine guns. We know that you can't buy unless it's a pre-banned 1985 weapon that's fully automatic. I can't buy a brand new MP5. Would I like one? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking, if you right now gave me a fucking just rub a genie and go, hey, what weapon you have? Can I have a fully automatic MP5? That'd be fucking cool, man. Like, not that I would use it in my regular, grig to go ahead and go shooting people, but as far as going out to the range, I've shot one. The thing barely moves. It's fucking cool as shit. I like it. Do I get that there's assholes out in the world and now I can't fucking have it? Yeah, it's just the way it works, man. I mean, there's certain things that, that because other people will fuck it up for the rest of us, we don't get access to now. You know what I mean?
What do you think, Mikey?
I think the biggest thing is a lot of times what's focused on. I feel like it's let's say you ban 30-round mags and you get down to 10, but it's still going to happen. I think you're wasting Congress time and resources doing stuff that's going to like go from 10 to 9. Where I think actually I forget. I wish I could remember the numbers.
What do you think would be a better fix?
But like Ted Cruz actually had a really good one. It talked about how the number of people who get put into the background system is something like only 20% of felons or something like that. So when they run a check, there's 80% of the felons out there that'll pass the background check. And that's something that actually the NRA is big on. Like, why isn't this happening?
Well, that's what I said before.
And I think like there was
so many gun laws that we have on the books that aren't enforced.
Right. I think what people they're casting a bigger net, but we need smaller holes. And I feel like it just gets overlooked.
Well, that's a huge one. I wasn't aware of that.
And then there's also the
there's felons that aren't inside the registry.
The church shooting guy and mentally incapacitated. The Air Force dropped the ball. He had some charge. I forget what it was in the Air Force, and
they didn't convey the information.
They didn't convey it into the background check system. And also,
I did hear about that. That's
felons who attempt to buy a gun. So let's say you're a felon. You put, "Are you a felon?" on your thing. You go, "No." and then you submit the paperwork, and they go, "Hey, you're a felon. You failed a background check." That's a felony. And then I think out of like thousands happened, like 45 got convicted. And they don't enforce laws.
Then there's this.
Like Matthew McConaughey, man, we need to pump up those numbers.
Yeah,
numbers, but then we got to pump those numbers up, man. Yeah. If you're a felon and you go try to buy a weapon, it should be at 99%. Like unless you're
it's a slam dunk felony.
Yeah, well, unless you have an IQ of 85 and you're just a fucking moron and can prove that somehow you just didn't. I don't know, like what the excuse could be, but. Absolutely, your ass is fucking going to jail.
Well, to my ear, then you're making a case for universal background check, which to me, if all of that were tightened up, it's not like we're living in the dark ages. I mean, technology can be our friend here. 100%.
I didn't understand why that was an argument here in Vegas.
That's the thing is there's more. People want more, but the background checking system, it's relying on people to put whoever the felons, the mentally ill, in there, and they're not doing it. So having a completely new thing.
No, you're right.
What's the point if you're not enforcing this background check
system? We need to enforce
system?
the rules that are already in play.
Yeah. But you can employ a universal background check. Another thing, too, is I don't think you should be able to buy a gun if you're on a no-fly list. Right now, you can do that.
Well, the thing is, though, you can just get put on a no-fly list.
Okay.
There's no due process to put you on a no-fly list.
Here's the thing. We'll work all that out. But to me, that's like if you get a restraining order against you. I mean, I think you ought to be, that's another new thing is the idea of what are they calling that? It's where if you have a restraining order put against you, like for domestic violence, you can have your gun taken away. Until you're cleared from that. And I'm in favor of that, too.
That's been federal law since, I think, 96. If you have a domestic, even a misdemeanor domestic, you can't buy a gun.
I don't think it's in all states. No, not buy one.
Oh,
if you have one.
Oh,
so you
confiscated?
Go, you go home, you beat up your wife or whatever. She gets a restraining order against you. You can now, in some states, have your gun taken away from you. Now, you can get it back, again, through due process.
I know you lose your CCW here in Nevada.
No problem with that either. All right.
Because I remember when they first passed that, I think it was in the 90s. I think I was still in high school when that happened. There was police officers that had in their history a domestic misdemeanor, and they became desk jockeys. Lost their ability to carry a handgun.
Okay. Well, listen,
One thing that I think you would like, James Woods, the actor, he's a big-time conservative on Twitter, actually said that I think if you get charged with animal abuse, you should get your firearms taken away. Which I think that'd be a good thing too.
Well, any of those, because it's like, that just my final point. Anytime you read, and this kind of gets back to the whole pit bull stigma and all that, is, Mikey and I both have pit bull children, is, I always tell people, whenever you read the headline of the pit bull attack, read 5-6 lines into the story. The convicted felon fugitive left his toddler unattended with the pit bull who was on the chain while he went to get his unregistered gun off the top of his meth lab that he left. I mean, you start connecting all these dots and you're like, oh, I see. They're fuck-ups. Like the pit bull just was one of half a dozen different instruments of evil that they had at their disposal, and that was the problem. Well, Mikey, clearly, I think you have probably heard the same thing that I have heard as a takeaway message in this conversation, which is Frank Mir, soft on guns.
I'm a flip-flopper, man. I toe the line.
All right.
I stepped in. I can be the gun nut.
There you go. There you go.
There you balance this out because I'm
left,
neutral.
Middle, right.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm a middleman.
Hey, Frank, in parting, a quick word about Freshly, the meal prep service that keeps me fed. Freshly is a meal prep service with delicious food delivered straight to your door. Meals are ready to eat in just a few minutes. You get back the hour you would have spent cooking, doing what you love. 30 meals to choose from. They're in a constant rotation of choices at Freshly.com, so you always have something new to try. Always all natural, sourced from the freshest ingredients to craft healthy and delicious dishes. No refined sugar, no high fructose corn syrup, no artificial flavors, sweeteners, or preservatives, and no hydrogenated oils. They have a special offer right now for Phone Booth Fighting listeners. You go to Freshly.com, enter the promo code PhoneBooth, and you're going to get 6 meals for $39. That's a savings of $20, and the offer is good twice, so you can use it on your first 2 orders. And Frank, I know the Mere kids have been enjoying the Freshly.com meals, yes?
No, they do very much. Obviously I do mine through Portion Control, but we do the Freshly. It gets delivered at the house, and that way whenever they come home and we're running around busy as hell with all our schedules, I know they can pull one of the meals out. It's healthy. We have healthy food in the house, but they got to put it together. Not necessarily going to do that as a kid, without mom doing it for you. So in the situations that, Jen's busy with me and my career, if the kids can grab one, stick it in the microwave, and I'm not worried that they're eating junk food.
They've got vegan choices for vegans like myself, vegetarian, gluten-free, all of it. Go to Freshly.com, enter the promo code PhoneBooth, and get 6 meals for $39, Freshly.com. Frank, tell them how to follow this little show on social media so we can get out of here.
You can follow us at Phone Booth Fighting. You can follow Phone Booth Fighting on Facebook and Instagram, and Phone Booth Fight at Snapchat and Twitter.
That's it. For Frank Mir, for Mikey over there doing a great job producing, I'm Richard Hunter. We'll see you right back here next time on Phone Booth Fighting.